Chapter 769. Although I trust you, I still have to leave some restrictions for you. If I let you go, I'll naturally let you go when the time comes. Although Chen Guoxingyang was trustworthy, people's hearts were hard to predict. They could change at will. Yang Tian couldn't let Chen Guoxingyang ruin his plan. After Chen Guoxingyang finished speaking, Yang Tian said coldly without any mercy. Chen Guoxingyang didn't show any dissatisfaction with Yang Tian's actions. If he was Yang Tian, he would do the same. Chen Guoxingyang was curious as to how Yang Tian would restrain him. Yang Tian raised his left hand and slowly tapped Chen Guoxingyang's forehead. A ball of origin power wrapped in mental power condensed at the tip of his index finger. Chen Guoxingyang instinctively leaned his head back when he saw Yang Tian's finger pointing at him. At this moment, a huge claw landed on Chen Guoxingyang's shoulder. Chen Guoxingyang sighed helplessly in his heart. He understood that if he didn't accept Yang Tian's restrictions, Yang Tian would definitely kill him without hesitation. With his current realm, he reckoned that as long as he made any strange movements, the strange beast behind him would immediately kill him. For a cultivator, being controlled by someone was really shameful. However, life was more important than face. Chen Guoxingyang's neck stiffened, allowing Yang Tian's finger to tap on his forehead. At this moment, Chen Guoxingyang felt a ball of strange energy enter his forehead. This was an external force, and a very dangerous one at that. Chen Guoxingyang's consciousness hadn't moved yet, but the energy in his body instinctively wanted to expel Yang Tian's energy from his body. At this moment, Yang Tian's voice sounded, "Don't resist. Otherwise, this ball of energy will explode in your body. Not only will you lose your head, but your entire body will also be corroded. Your family knows about me, Yang Tian. Naturally, you know that I'm not only proficient in runes, but also have a special kind of energy." At this time, Chen Guoxingyang recalled the information about Yang Tian. Sure enough, there was one. It was because Yang Tian's attainments in talisman Taoism were too eye-catching. Chen Guoxingyang had neglected the fact that he possessed a strange energy with an extremely powerful attacking force. Thinking of the terrible consequences that Yang Tian had mentioned, Chen Guoxingyang hurriedly used his consciousness to control the energy in his body. He wrapped the energy that Yang Tian had touched his forehead and did not expel it. Yang Tian withdrew his hand and smiled at Chen Guoxingyang. "Now I can completely trust you." Now, as long as Yang Tian withdrew the spiritual power enveloping the origin power, the ball of origin power would lose control and explode like a bomb. Not to mention Chen Guoxingyang, who was a cultivator in the illusion realm, even Ku Man, who was an expert in the 100 transformation realm, could only obey Yang Tian's orders. Yang Tian pulled the cloak over his head and covered it again. He said to Chen Guoxingyang, "Now we can go out." Chen Guoxingyang nodded. At this time, Chen Guoxingyang's emotions, which had been aroused by Yang Tian, had completely dissipated. He had calmed down. Compared to before, his mood was somewhat low. The Rune Division was naturally the one who created and distributed the Hall tokens in the Everlasting Temple. During this period, the Rune Division finally had some free time. In the past, the people in the Rune Division had to deal with tens of thousands of Hall tokens almost every day. Among these tens of thousands of Hall tokens, some of them had died outside, and the corresponding Hall token had to be destroyed. The Everlasting Temple was very big and had hundreds of millions of disciples. It was very normal for a few thousand people to die every day. Also, some people's Hall tokens had been damaged and needed to be replaced. There were no backups for Hall tokens. If they were damaged, the process of dealing with them would be extremely troublesome. This was because the other Hall tokens stored in the Rune Division would also need to be replaced. The remaining small number of Hall tokens needed to be replaced due to a promotion or demotion in status. After Kuang Xing started to take action, he stopped recruiting disciples outside. The workload of the Rune Division was reduced by more than half. There was not much work left, so there were fewer people in the Rune division. At this time, it was naturally easy to sneak in. Yang Tian had come here to steal a hall token, and it was a 9-colored hall token. In the Everlasting Temple, only the division chief was qualified to have such a hall token. Only with a 9-colored hall token could Yang Tian openly go to some of the valuable places in the temple. His plan would be more successful, and in the process, he could also gain a lot of benefit. If he only destroyed the temple, the appearance fee would be too cheap for Yang Tian. If he went to the Rune division openly, he would probably be intercepted halfway. He had to sneak in without anyone noticing. In the process of moving forward, Yang Tian learned from Chengwu Xingyang the reason for the sudden martial law in the temple. This was because Kuang Xing, who was outside, had heard that the Yuan family had appeared in the Cloud territory. He had also heard that after so many years, the Yuan family had infiltrated the temple, and some of them had even become higher-ups in the temple. The temple was usually very strict with the management of disciples, especially new disciples. If they did not know their background, they would definitely not let them in. Although this news was somewhat groundless, Kuang Xing still made the temple increase its vigilance. This caused a certain amount of trouble for Yang Tian's plan. Fortunately, with Chengwu Xingyang leading the way, they did not encounter anyone along the way. They smoothly approached the Rune division of the Everlasting Temple. The Rune division of the Everlasting Temple was very large. It was at least 100 times the size of the Hui family. The Rune division was divided into dozens of divisions that handled affairs. Yang Tian wanted to enter the storehouse where the trump cards were stored. Every hall token had a trump card, so it was convenient to check its authenticity. Of course, this situation was extremely rare. The creation of the temple's hall tokens was extremely complicated and could not be replicated by ordinary people. The advantage of having a trump card was that other than distinguishing between real and fake, it could also be used to know whether the temple's disciples were alive or dead from a long distance away. When Yang Tian had killed Kuman, Kuang Xing had rushed over in time because of the hall token. The hall token was actually a communication device. After listening to Chengwu Xingyang's description of the hall token, Yang Tian felt that it could be made even more perfect. The Rune division was one of the most important institutions of the Everlasting Temple. Not only did it cover a large area, but it also had an excellent environment. There were actually benefits to being under martial law. That was, there were no longer people who came out to play. Under Chengwu Xingyang's guidance, the 2 people and 1 dragon passed through a forest. After carefully passing through the messy mountain rocks for half a day, they finally reached their destination. Dozens of meters ahead was the place where the Rune division stored the trump cards. Not only were there many guards guarding such an important place, but it was also covered in layers of rune arrays. Because of the martial law, the more sophisticated and energy-consuming defensive rune arrays were also activated. Chengwu Xingyang said to Yang Tian, "I turned off the positioning function on the blue token, so I can't get close. If you want to go in, you have to go through the rune arrays outside first." Yang Tian looked at a group of temple guards patrolling in the distance and said with a smile, "That's not difficult. The only difficult thing is that we don't know the place." After saying that, Yang Tian patted Chengwu Xingyang's shoulder. Immediately after, he stood up and folded his hands in front of his chest. Then, he quickly changed his hands, forming afterimages. During this process, invisible energy fluctuations were emitted from Yang Tian's hand. In a moment, Chengwu Xingyang, who was standing next to Yang Tian, suddenly felt that his body was enveloped by a strange energy. The reason for this feeling was that the surrounding air flow, temperature, sound, and even light had changed. "Okay, let's go in." At this moment, Yang Tian's voice suddenly sounded. Oh, Chengwu Xingyang couldn't help but be stunned. He thought to himself, "Isn't this too simple?" For the current Yang Tian and the strange program, it was that simple. From the Rune Master, the strange program had obtained enough rune information. In addition, Yang Tian's body had undergone some modifications, so the cracking process was naturally simple. Compared to the rune arrays set up by the Rune Master, the rune arrays made by the Rune Masters of the Everlasting Temple were really not enough. Back then, when Yang Tian cracked the Architect Palace of the Superstar Divinity Temple, it was not as simple as this. Chen Wu Xingyang walked slowly and lightly behind Yang Tian. They walked out of the messy mountain rocks and entered through an open side door less than 20 meters away from the guard. At this time, Yang Tian and Chen Wu Xingyang were surrounded by the rune arrays calculated by the strange program. Not only could they easily pass through the defensive rune arrays outside the runes department, but they also had a strong stealth effect. In the runes department's warehouse, there were only a few people inside, slowly sorting out some messy things. Chen Wu Xingyang was not familiar with this place because he had never been here before. Yang Tian walked through it for half an hour before he found an inconspicuous warehouse. While no one was paying attention, he cracked the layers of rune arrays outside the door, opened the door, and walked in. The moment the door opened, Yang Tian winked at the little blue dragon lying on his shoulder. The little blue dragon understood Yang Tian's meaning and rushed in as fast as it could. Because there was someone inside. The reason why Yang Tian noticed this inconspicuous small warehouse was because the rune arrays here were the most complicated and precise in the entire runes department's warehouse. The warehouse that stored the black and white plates, as well as the other colors, were all very large. In the previous half an hour, Yang Tian had been searching non-stop. He had even seen the 3 colored plates, but he had not seen the 9 colored plates. Yang Tian had a feeling that this small storeroom must be the one where the 9-colored palace token was stored. Because there were not many secretaries, the place where the plates were stored was definitely not big, but it was the most secure place. This was indeed the place where the 9-colored plates were stored. An old man with the position of manager was sitting behind a wide table, dozing off. Although the door was opened, it was not broken by violence, so the old man did not care and thought that a colleague had come in. The old man did not even open his eyes. When he heard the sound of the wind, it was already too late. Just like how the little blue dragon had subdued Chen Wu Xingyang, the old man fell asleep in an instant. This time, the little blue dragon had used a bit of strength and even used the energy in his body. He would probably not wake up until he fell asleep for a few hours. A few hours was enough for Yang Tian. Very soon, Yang Tian opened the metal cabinet that stored the 9-colored palace token that was locked by a talisman array. There were many small compartments in the cabinet, and they were divided into many layers. Now, Yang Tian only needed to make a 9-colored plates, then make another trump card and put it inside. Then, he would have completed his purpose of coming here. With the 9-colored plates, Yang Tian would be like a Trojan horse program in the temple. There are many secretaries in the temple. Which identity is suitable for me? Yang Tian looked at the densely packed cards in the cabinet and turned around to ask Chen Wu Xingyang. Chen Wu Xingyang thought for a while, and suddenly his eyes lit up. He said, "The most suitable one is the guest division." Guest division? That's right. Chen Wu Xingyang said, "The people in the guest division are extremely mysterious in the temple. It's usually very hard to see one." After Chen Wu Xingyang's explanation, Yang Tian understood. It turned out that the guest division was an organization set up by the temple to win over the experts outside. The status of these people in the Limitless Temple was the same as the guest elders in the Superstar Divine Temple. They only listened to the temple master. Most of the time, they listened to orders and did not listen to orders. Getting such an identity is not bad, Yang Tian thought. Chapter 770. The little blue dragon looked at the restrained old man. Yang Tian found a newly made 9-colored palace token on the old man's table. The 9-colored palace token looked much better than the blue palace token that Chen Wu Xingyang had. It was sword-shaped and looked like a small sword. The hilt was red and was made of red jade. There was a small hole on it that could be threaded and hung around the waist. There were 8 colors on the sword. Different colors could be seen from different angles in the same place. In Yang Tian's eyes, this thing was simply an exquisite piece of art. Yang Tian held it in his hand and felt its weight. It was very light, but he could feel that the material was very fine through his skin. Under normal circumstances, it should be very heavy. However, the talisman array on it reduced the weight of the palace token by more than half. After Yang Tian weighed it, he separated a bit of his mind power and wrapped it around the 9-colored palace token. Yang Tian had already observed Chen Wu Xingyang's blue palace token. There were more than 300 talisman arrays on it. It was simply an integrated circuit board. This 9-colored palace token had even more talisman arrays on it. There were more than 1,100 of them. It was even more intricate than the blue palace token. In fact, most of the talisman arrays on it were keys to some of the talisman arrays in the temple. The talisman arrays on the palace token allowed the holder to enter and exit the array freely. If such intricate things were made by humans without the help of the strange program, it would be impossible to make them successfully in a short time. In fact, such things were really made by the talisman masters of the temple. The other palace tokens that were mass-produced were made with the help of semi-intelligent small robots provided by the machinery race. Naturally, the everlasting temple would not let the machinery race make something as important as the 9-colored palace token. On the table, there were tools that Yang Tian had never seen before. The talisman arrays on the 9-colored palace token were not difficult. The strange program quickly calculated and recorded them. During this process, the strange program also deduced the structure of some of the talisman arrays in the temple. If he wanted to make another one, there would not be enough time. Yang Tian used his mind power and the guidance of the strange program to quickly complete the 9-colored palace token in his hand. The whole process took about an hour. As for the trump card, it was much simpler. After Yang Tian observed a few pieces, he came up with a complete design. After another half an hour, the trump card that was connected to Yang Tian's 9-colored palace token was completed. During his time in the Yggdrasil, Yang Tian had been guided by Chu Yengyang, so he had become even more proficient in using his mind power. In a way, the trump card made by Yang Tian's mental power was the most intricate among all of his trump cards. Even the palace plates and trump cards made with micro-machines could not compare to it. This was the effect of mental power controlling objects on a microscopic level. After making the trump cards, Yang Tian went to the cabinet where the trump cards were kept. He placed over 100 palace cards in a random order and placed the newly made trump cards inside. This way, even if the old man in front of him woke up, it would take some time to find which one was fake. Of course, Yang Tian wouldn't wake him up now. Yang Tian personally penetrated a trace of his force into the old man's brain. The old man, whom Yang Tian did not know, was only a cultivator at the peak of the illusion realm. It was probably because he cultivated talisman path that his boundary couldn't be improved faster. Yang Tian had seen many people like this. In one's life, it was not a sad thing to give up a comfortable life for a hobby, even for one's own life. Yang Tian did not plan to take the old man's life. Although the force was small, it was extremely condensed and existed in the old man's brain. Given the old man's cultivation base in the illusion realm, it would take at least a few days to dissolve the force. A few days were enough for Yang Tian. Moreover, the advantage of doing this was that it would take a long time to find out the reason why the old man was unconscious. Let's go. After casually putting the 9-colored palace token into his storage bracelet, Yang Tian turned around and said to Chen Wu Xingyang, who was in a daze. That's it. Chen Wu Xingyang's mind was filled with thoughts. It was really incomparable when compared to others. He could be considered an elite of the Chen Wu family. After mingling in the temple for so many years, He could not compare to what Yang Tian had done in half a day. Now that Yang Tian had the 9-colored palace token and the temple master was not here, one could imagine what the temple would become. Chen Wuxingyang followed behind Yang Tian in a daze. He did not know when they had left the rune department. Chen Wuxingyang only woke up when they entered a small forest next to the rune department. Where are we going next? Chen Wuxingyang asked curiously. Yang Tian said with a smile, of course to the guest department. Lead the way. Chen Wuxingyang was stunned for a moment before saying, oh, okay, please follow me. The guest department occupies a large area, but there are very few people inside. Those guards definitely don't know how many guests there are in the guest department. After exiting the forest, Yang Tian and Chen Wuxingyang walked openly on the main road of the temple. After the martial law was enforced, many guards were sent to guard the key points of the road. Usually, these guards were a little lazy, but now they looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Not only were there more guards, but some of the key roads were also activated with formations that had been used for a long time. With the 9-colored palace token, the road was unimpeded. If they encountered an inspection, Yang Tian would immediately show the 9-colored palace token that he had just obtained. When they saw the palace token in Yang Tian's hand, the guards who inspected his identity were all very respectful to him. Of course, some of the guard leaders knew how to distinguish the authenticity of the palace token. These people even had special tools in their hands. Yang Tian's 9-colored palace token was completely connected with the main formation of the entire temple. This was originally something made by the rune department, and Yang Tian had only modified it a little. The guard leaders naturally could not find any problems. Under the guidance of Chen Wuxingyang, Yang Tian quickly arrived at the guest department. The guest department was indeed very large. Just the main hall alone occupied more than 100 acres, and there were dozens of auxiliary halls beside it. Such a large place was comparable to the rune department, but the number of people was 100 times less than the rune department. Most of the cultivators who had 9-colored palace tokens in the guest department did not stay in the temple for various reasons. There were even some people who had never come to the guest department, although they had received the 9-colored palace token. Therefore, as to how many guests there were in the guest department, even the person in charge of the guest department was not very clear about such matters. They could only find out if they went to the rune department to inquire. The everlasting temple was very large, and the resources allocated to each department were different. The guest department, which did not do anything but consumed a large amount of resources, offended many people. The relationship between the deacons in charge of the various departments in the Divine Hall was not very friendly. Therefore, even if people from the guest department went to the rune department to inquire, they would be made difficult. Yang Tian entered the main entrance of the cleaning department. After walking for a distance, he was stopped by a thin middle-aged man in a blue robe. What surprised Yang Tian was that this blue-robed man was actually an expert of the 100 Changes realm. This is Yu Li Si, the head of the Qinghu department. Chen Wuxingyang recognized this blue-robed man and whispered in Yang Tian's ear. If he did not have the 9-colored palace token, Yang Tian would have turned and fled when he met Yu Li. But now, although he was in the destiny realm, he had the 9-colored palace token. According to the rules of the temple, he was of the same level as Yu Li. Yang Tian was naturally not afraid. Who are you? How come I have never seen you before? After Yu Li stopped Yang Tian, he sized up Yang Tian and asked indifferently. Yang Tian knew that this was not the time to admit defeat. He said in a proud tone, "It's normal that you have never seen me before, because this is my first time in the guest department. As for who I am, when the temple master returns, you can ask him personally." Yang Tian's words made Yu Li grit his teeth in anger. This was because Yang Tian had reason to be proud. As a member of the guest department, He had the 9-colored palace token and did not need to care about these deities' hall officials. He was very unyielding in front of the temple master, not to mention a mere deity. Yuli suppressed the anger in his heart and reached out to Yang Tian. "Can you at least let me see your palace token?" Yang Tian did not hesitate. He took out the palace token from his storage bracelet and casually threw it to Yuli. "So you are called Miajan. What are you doing in the rune department?" Yuli carefully looked at Yang Tian's 9-colored palace token. After learning about Yang Tian's fake identity from the array glyphs on the palace token, he returned the palace token to Yang Tian and asked again. Miajan was a name that Yang Tian had casually given. He had originally wanted to change the name to Miedian, but he thought that it would cause people to have some wild and fanciful thought. Therefore, he chose a side of the word Dian. The characters of this world were different from Chinese characters. No matter what, Yuli would not associate it with the words Miedian. Yang Tian's face was covered by a black cloth. Yuli really wanted to see Yang Tian's true face, but he knew that this was an unreasonable request. It was not just the guest department. Many people in the deity's hall did not usually show their true faces to others. Moreover, it was very easy for a cultivator to change their appearance. The only thing that did not change was the aura emitted from their body. In other words, it was the energy fluctuation that was the mark of a cultivator. If Kuang Xing were here at this moment and sensed the aura emitted from Yang Tian's body, he would definitely recognize Yang Tian immediately. Of course, if he really encountered Kuang Xing, Yang Tian could also rely on the array glyphs to conceal his aura from Kuang Xing. What was he doing here? Faced with Yuli's question, Yang Tian smiled and said, "I'm here to take back what originally belonged to me. After so many years, I should have accumulated a lot, right?" As soon as Yang Tian's voice fell, Yuli's cheeks could not help but twitch a few times. This time, Yuli completely dispelled his doubts about Yang Tian's identity. The people in the guest department who held the 9-colored palace token had a mysterious identity. They usually did not appear in the deity's hall, but the tributes they received from time to time were always given out. In fact, those who could become the holders of the 9-colored palace token in the guest department of the deity's hall did not care for the tributes of the deity's hall. However, there were also a small number of people who would come to receive the tributes once in a while. Each time, to Yuli, it was an unbearable experience. If these people came to receive once every period of time, it still would not be much. But accumulating over a period of time, it would be a huge sum. 1,371 tributes. Although his heart ached, Yuli still took out a very tattered book made of who knows what material from his storage bracelet and calculated a sum for Yang Tian. This was an account book. There were no people's names recorded on it. It just recorded the things that the guest department's guests received every period of time. After calculating, Yuli gritted his teeth and said, "Please follow this old man to the storeroom." Finished talking, Yuli turned around and left. Yang Tian smiled slightly and immediately followed after. The Cherngu Xingyang who came together with Yang Tian felt that his brain was not quite enough to process at this time. He stayed in the deity's hall for so many years. It was his first time witnessing the deity's hall's massive loophole. An outsider, as long as they held the 9-colored palace token, could receive things from the guest department. If this were to spread out, it would be very hard for people to believe, right? However, the truth was right in front of Chengwu Xingyang. Of course, it was not that no one knew about this loophole, but to do it as easily as Xiang Tian, the difficulty was probably not as easy as killing Kuang Xing. Chengwu Xingyang, who was following beside Yang Tian, had already been ignored. The blue token that he had could at most enter the main door of the guest department. He did not have the qualifications to enter inside. Therefore, he followed behind Yang Tian. In front of the door to the main hall, he was blocked by an invisible force. As for Yang Tian and Yuli, they walked in without any obstructions. Yuli led Yang Tian through layers of halls before finally arriving at the storage hall of the guest department. In fact, Yuli led Yang Tian in a big circle. This was a cautious approach to test whether the 9-colored palace token on Yang Tian's body was real or not. The result was that it could not be any more real. Unless someone in the Runes Division wanted to cheat the guest department. The Runes Division would not do such a thing. After leading Yang Tian to the storage hall, Yuli did not have the face to stay any longer. After instructing a few subordinates, he turned around and prepared to leave. Yuli thought that instead of being angry with someone like Miezhan, he might as well go back and teach a few descendants. Please wait a moment. Unexpectedly, just as Yuli turned around, Yang Tian's voice rang out. Yuli turned around and looked at Yang Tian. When he saw the smiling expression in Yang Tian's eyes, anger once again rose in his heart. If Yang Tian did not have the 9-colored palace token, he would have slapped Yang Tian. What is it? Yuli asked. Yang Tian smiled. I want to ask if I can walk a few rounds around the temple after taking the item. This place is really good. Hearing Yang Tian's words, Yuli said in a contemptuous tone, Go ahead. After saying that, he walked away. After leaving, Yuli calmed himself down. He understood that the reason why he was angry at Yang Tian was because he was jealous of Yang Tian. At the same time, he was dissatisfied with reality. After Yuli left, Yang Tian received a pile of good items. I didn't expect that I would get paid even though I did not do anything. Yang Tian looked at the items that the managers of the guest department took out and could not help but laugh in his heart. Chapter 771 100,000 Destiny Comprehension Realm Pills, 100 million Standard Volume Laos Crystals, all kinds of precious materials for making weapons and armors. Looking at this pile of things, Yang Tian couldn't help but marvel at the wealth of the Limitless Temple. He couldn't help but think that if he had changed the age of joining the temple a little earlier when he changed the palace tablet, would he have received more? Of course, Yang Tian was just thinking about it. One shouldn't be too greedy, right? If he changed the age even earlier, what if he was exposed? These things, to the Limitless Temple, were just a drop in the ocean. Looking at the expressions on the faces of the managers who were cleaning up these things, it was obvious. It was clear that these people often took out more items than they did in quantity. There were a lot of things, and they were all stored in a special storage bag that did not recognize its owner. After Yang Tian received it, he did not count it and stuffed it into a trouser pocket. In fact, Yang Tian's main purpose in coming to the clearance department this time was to test the use of the 9-colored palace tablet. He didn't expect the effect to be so good. If the clearance department had so many things, then how much wealth would be stored in the treasury of the Limitless Temple? Yang Tian didn't dare to imagine. The next step was to set up the talisman array to destroy the Limitless Temple. Then, Yang Tian would have the idea of going to the treasury of the Limitless Temple. Destroying the Limitless Temple was Yang Tian's main purpose. Although the wealth was tempting, Yang Tian was still clear about the priority of the matter and did not lose his calm. That special storage space was the most important place of the Limitless Temple. Even with the 9-colored palace tablet, one could not casually approach it. If he went to the treasury first, once he was discovered, the plan he had made before would definitely be ruined. Out of the clearance department's warehouse, out of the clearance department's door, Yang Tian saw Qing Wu Xingyang waiting for him. Yang Tian originally thought that this guy would take the opportunity to leave, but he didn't expect him to still stay here. When Yang Tian planted the restriction in Qing Wu Xingyang's mind, he didn't tell Qing Wu Xingyang that he could use his mind power to locate Qing Wu Xingyang's physical body. In fact, after Yang Tian had gone in, Qing Wu Xingyang also had the same idea because Yang Tian's plan was really risky. Although he had decided to cooperate with Yang Tian, firstly, he was threatened by Yang Tian, and secondly, He could also benefit from Yang Tian's plan. However, once Yang Tian wasn't around, Chen Wuxingyang couldn't help but waver. After hesitating for a long time, Chen Wuxingyang finally chose to stay. What Chen Wuxingyang didn't know was that he had taken a trip to the gates of hell. Once he left, as long as Yang Tian willed it, the energy in Chen Wuxingyang's forehead would explode. The powerful origin power could instantly destroy Chen Wuxingyang's brain, and then destroy his body. With Chen Wuxingyang's current realm, it was impossible for him to expel the origin power from his body in a short time. Next, where are we going? The two left the guest department. After walking for a while, Chen Wuxingyang saw that there was no one around and asked Yang Tian in a low voice. Yang Tian smiled and said, "It will take some time. We have a lot of places to go. Do you have the blueprint of the everlasting temple?" Chen Wuxingyang shook his head. "This is the temple's secret. How would a small character like me know? However, I know where to find it." Yang Tian shook his head. "No need to go through so much trouble. It'll just take some time." After that, Yang Tian randomly strolled around the entire everlasting temple. Chen Wuxingyang saw it this way because Yang Tian's direction was always aimless. He would go east, stop for a while, go north, and then turn back. The news of Yang Tian entering the guest department spread quickly. In less than half an hour, more than half of the temple knew about it. With the 9-colored palace token leading the way, Yang Tian's journey was unimpeded. In fact, the places that Yang Tian went to were not important to the temple. However, only Yang Tian knew that the route he took was according to the instructions of the strange program. The powerful part of the strange program was that it could calculate the types of energy that made up the rune array based on the energy emitted by it, and simulate the true structure of the rune array. The places that Yang Tian went to seemed inconspicuous, but they were the key points of some of the everlasting temple's large-scale rune arrays. Even the rune masters who built the rune arrays probably did not expect these places to be. According to Ketla Planet's time, Yang Tian went to hundreds of points in less than 3 days. The rune array structure of the entire everlasting temple had been calculated by the strange program. It even created a 3-dimensional diagram that Yang Tian could understand. After the results were out, the strange program told Yang Tian that the largest rune array in the everlasting temple was the one that held up the entire temple. The energy consumed by this huge rune array every day was at least 1 billion in terms of lice crystals. If other additional rune arrays were included, the energy consumption would double. This huge number shocked Yang Tian. Every day's consumption was more than the combined resources of the Hui family in a few years. The Hui family's underground city was designed by the strange program, and the entire underground city did not consume that much energy. This number made Yang Tian have strong expectations for the special storage space of the everlasting temple. After knowing the structure of the everlasting temple's array, the next step was simple. Some bored people in the temple even started betting because of Yang Tian's movements. In some people's eyes, Yang Tian was like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. In fact, everyone who came here for the first time would be shocked by the grandeur of the everlasting temple. They also understood Yang Tian's feelings. The betting table was out. In the end, Yang Tian suddenly quieted down. In the everlasting temple, there were naturally some halls used to receive guests. Yang Tian stayed there for a few days. In the room, seeing Yang Tian frowning, Chen Wuxingyang started to worry. At this time, he thought that Yang Tian had encountered some difficulties. There were indeed difficulties, but it was not what Chen Wuxingyang thought. According to the strange program's calculations, the most direct way to destroy the everlasting temple was to make the temple fall from the sky. However, if he did this, the ordinary people living below would definitely suffer. The number of deaths would not be in the hundreds of thousands or millions, but in the hundreds of millions. Yang Tian felt that he was not a good person, But if he had to sacrifice hundreds of millions of ordinary people to complete a plan, Yang Tian could not do it. If that was the case, what was the difference between him and people like the Talisman Master and Kuang Xing? Move the temple away. This was the only way. With the strange program's calculations, this was not impossible. Yang Tian thought that when the time came, the entire temple would fly away at an extremely fast speed towards the harsh environment of the desert where ordinary people live. What would that be like? Chapter 772. When he imagined Kuo Xing and the others' expressions when they saw the temple fly away, Yang Tian really wanted to laugh. From another point of view, if Yang Tian's spaceship was taken away by someone else, he would also be furious. This thought undoubtedly increased the difficulty of Yang Tian's previous plan. For the next few days, Yang Tian locked himself in his room and asked Cheng Wu Xingyang to help him collect a lot of materials for making talisman arrays. There were blue stones, wood, metal pieces. There were hundreds of different kinds. Having been in this world for so long, Yang Tian had a basic understanding of the materials in this world. Many of the materials in this world were suitable for carving talisman arrays. In particular, some stone materials were fine like metal. If they were polished, they could be used as mirrors. If the energy lines of the talisman array were carved on these materials, the transmission of the talisman array's energy would be smoother and the consumption would be less. After Cheng Wu Xingyang received the list of materials from Yang Tian, he went out without saying a word. In less than half a day, he had bought enough materials for Yang Tian. There were many cultivators in the everlasting temple. They needed all kinds of materials for their cultivation and life. There was a special market for them. Although Yang Tian had never been there, he knew that it must be a very prosperous place. He wanted to go and take a look, but he thought that there were too many people. It would be bad if someone who had seen him before noticed something. Yang Tian asked Cheng Wu Xingyang to collect a lot of materials, but they were all basic materials for making talisman arrays. In addition, when Cheng Wu Xingyang went out, Yang Tian told him not to attract the attention of others. Therefore, the collection of materials this time did not attract the attention of others. After the materials were gathered, Yang Tian began to make the various talisman array parts with the help of the strange program. During the process, Yang Tian closed the door again and asked Cheng Wu Xingyang to guard outside the room and not let anyone come close. 5 days later, Yang Tian walked out of the room. The materials that Cheng Wu Xingyang collected had become part of the talisman array. If these components were combined, a total of 49 rune arrays could be constructed. Compared to the rune array components of the everlasting temple, the rune array components, made by Yang Tian with the help of the strange program, were very small, but they could play the same role. Next, Yang Tian took action again. Yang Tian placed the tiny components of the talisman array in inconspicuous and secretive places in everlasting temple. After Yang Tian put it away and left, the little azure dragon took action and hid the talisman array components. With the cooperation of a man and a dragon, their speed was extremely fast. In less than 2 days, all the components of the glyph array had been placed in place. After returning to his previous room and sending Cheng Wu Xingyang out, Yang Tian took out a black triangular object engraved with runes from his storage bracelet and placed a small piece of Laos crystal into a square card slot on the triangular object. He gently pressed on it and the rune energy lines merged. The black triangular object lit up and projected a blue light in the air. In the blue light, it showed the rune array that Yang Tian had just set up. This black triangular object was naturally the main hub that controlled the 49 rune arrays. 3 of the rune arrays are abnormal. After a while, the result came out, and the rune program said in Yang Tian's mind. Because there were many components of the rune array, and the range was very wide, and the little blue dragon was not a human, it was difficult to trigger the components of the rune array when hiding them. It was normal that the 3 rune arrays could not be activated normally. It must be known that rune arrays, like electronic devices, had to be very precise. Only humans with a foundation in cultivation could cultivate runes. If ordinary humans were to learn runes, it would be impossible. First, it was because the lives of ordinary humans were too short, and second, they did not have powerful energy and abundant energy. The strange program quickly found the crux of the problem with the 3 rune arrays. Sure enough, it was because the components that made up the rune arrays were out of the range where they should be placed. Xiaolong, look here. This piece, move the distance of a palm's length over there. Yang Tian was afraid that he would attract attention if he went out again, so he could only let the little blue dragon, who had not shown himself outside after coming to the temple, move out. There were naturally strange beasts in the temple, and there were many kinds of them. Many of them were rare beasts. The little blue dragon only needed to change its appearance slightly. Even if it was discovered, it would be fine as long as it was not caught. The little blue dragon's intelligence was not inferior to that of an adult. After this fellow had swallowed a large amount of leaves from the world tree, its mental strength had increased quite a bit, and its memory had become much stronger as well. There were more than 30 rune array components that needed to be moved. The little blue dragon had memorized all of them. Then, it turned into a ray of green light and rushed out of the window. After the little blue dragon left, Yang Tian had been paying attention to the display projected by the black triangular object in front of him. The little azure dragon's recovery speed was very fast. When it returned, the 3 faulty glyph arrays could already operate smoothly. After confirming that there were no problems with the test, Yang Tian excitedly pressed on the black triangle once more. Suddenly, the blue light projected by the black triangular object gradually faded, and a grand 3-dimensional image appeared in Yang Tian's eyes from blurry to clear. For Yang Tian, the most important step had been completed. The 49 rune arrays designed by the strange program were like a rune array virus. After they were activated, the rune energy they emitted had silently seeped into the central rune array of the everlasting temple. It could be said that from now on, most of the rune arrays in the everlasting temple were under Yang Tian's control. Not only that, but by using the black triangular rune array core, the strange program could also change the original rune array. For the talisman masters of the divine halls, it was impossible for them to use such a strange method. It was something that they would never imagine. Any energy, especially energy of the same type, could be fused. Rune energy was also energy. Of course, that required a huge amount of computing power. Just like the humans on Earth, science and technology only began to develop rapidly after the invention of computers. If people were to calculate all kinds of data manually, it would take them 1,000 years to achieve results that could not be compared to 10 years of computer development. Now, the entire everlasting temple was under Yang Tian's control. In the everlasting temple, every place with a rune array was already under the surveillance of the strange program. This was also where the strange program was abnormal. The sound, light, and other energy information collected by the rune energy was absorbed by the rune array and transmitted over. After it was processed, it could be restored to sound and image. Of course, compared to electronic equipment, this was still lacking. Other than sound, the image obtained was very blurry. Yang Tian was not interested in other people's privacy at all. What he wanted to know was the special storage space in the everlasting temple. If possible, Yang Tian wanted to empty it. If he obtained the wealth, Yang Tian was confident that he and the little blue dragon could cultivate to the immortal travel realm in a very short time. After the strange program processed all kinds of information, it told Yang Tian that it had found the place. After it finished speaking, the strange program displayed a flat image in Yang Tian's mind. The entrance to the treasure vault was marked on it by the strange program. It was a square building with tall walls on all sides, covering an area of a few thousand square meters. In the everlasting temple, There were thousands of such strange buildings. Yang Tian had seen such a building with his own eyes. It had always been thought to be the array core of the rune array. In fact, it was a trick made by the rune master who designed the treasure vault. Soon, the strange program listed the guards at the entrance for Yang Tian. There were a total of 25 destiny-comprehending experts stationed here. Entering the treasure vault was not difficult for Yang Tian, but to enter the treasure vault under the eyes of these 25 people was very difficult. Unless the entire everlasting temple was in chaos, Yang Tian thought for a moment and said to the strange program, "Let the temple fly. Let the humans living below see what is in the sky above their head." After the strange program responded, a rumbling sound suddenly rang out, and the ground started to shake as it flew in the direction of the sand domain. Chapter 773. As the everlasting temple shook, the talisman array that concealed the everlasting temple lost its function under the control of a strange program. The people living below the everlasting temple suddenly saw the sky darken. 1,000 meters above them, a continuous mountain range and a temple appeared. The people below the everlasting temple were densely populated. The appearance of the temple in the sky caused a huge commotion. Everyone stopped what they were doing and raised their heads to look at the everlasting temple floating in the sky in shock. Not only ordinary humans, but even many people who came out of the limitless divine palace did not know that this huge divine palace was actually above their heads. The everlasting temple, which had suddenly appeared, rumbled and trembled. Rocks kept falling as it flew into the distance. Its speed was getting faster and faster. In a few minutes, it had flown away from the human settlement. This made many nervous people finally heave a sigh of relief. The everlasting temple gave them a feeling that it was too heavy. If it fell, more than half of the people below it would die. Now, even if it disintegrated in the air, it would not fall to the ground. Many people couldn't help but wonder why there were so many strange things happening in recent times. First, the continent that had been peaceful for countless years split apart. Then, such a huge building appeared in the sky. At this time, the most shocked people were not the people below the everlasting temple, but the cultivators in the everlasting temple. Especially the professionals, those talisman masters. Many old talisman masters had also participated in the construction of this temple, although it was only the end of the project. They were the group of people who understood this temple the best, just like how Yang Tian understood the Hui family's underground city. They could not understand. According to the design, the everlasting temple could only float in the air, and did not have the ability to fly. How could it suddenly fly? Even if the previous temple master had a unique idea and secretly changed the temple's talisman array, it was impossible for them not to know. Although they thought so, the talisman masters were the first group to react. With an order from above, dozens of people from the rune department immediately went to various parts of the temple to investigate what had gone wrong. As soon as the everlasting temple moved, the cultivators living here became chaotic. Of course, this was only relative. No matter how chaotic the limitless temple was, it could not compare to the riots of ordinary humans. Although they weren't worried about being crushed to death by the buildings, almost everyone left their residences and walked to the wide streets or climbed up the nearby mountains. The cultivators in seclusion were disturbed by the commotion and had no choice but to stop cultivating. At this time, the scene outside the temple changed again. The previous scene was almost unchanging under the effect of the glyph array, but it was different now. The clouds in the sky were moving rapidly, and the mountains in the distance were getting closer. They could even see the dense buildings on the ground. In the past, they could only see such a clear view in front of the everlasting palace of the palace master. But now, as long as they climbed to a high place, they would have the opportunity to appreciate it. The low-ranking cultivators in the Hall of Gods were still unaware of what had happened. They thought that the shift of the Hall of Gods was caused by the higher-ups. As for the higher-ups, especially the sea who held great power, they finally understood that the shift of the Divine Hall was a major event that was completely out of their control. Someone must have snuck into the temple, and this person was proficient in glyph arrays. If the key conditions were listed, only that person called Yang Tian could make the Hall of Gods fly out of its original position. Before the matter was clarified, this was of course just a guess. The sea who stayed in the Hall of Gods immediately gathered together and had a short meeting. They also passed this important news to Kuo-shing. They only knew that what Kuo-shing was doing had reached a critical point and could not be disturbed. However, this matter was really too big. If the Hall of Gods was destroyed, it didn't mean that the Limitless Temple would become famous in this world, but their strength would definitely be greatly reduced. In the future, they would definitely be surpassed by the Sky Domain Temple and Starry Sky Temple. They would fall from the top of the three great temples to the bottom. I didn't expect Yang Tian to come to the Limitless Temple. Unlike some people in the Limitless Temple, Black Talisman Lord was certain that this commotion was caused by Yang Tian. Black Talisman Lord knew better than anyone that it was extremely difficult to enter the Hall of Gods, let alone destroy it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried to curry favor with Ku Man. Then what about asking Yang Tian for help? Black Talisman Lord naturally thought about it, but he understood that the current Yang Tian was much stronger than him. He was no longer the small fry that he could kill with a single finger. With the previous incident, Yang Tian would definitely not cooperate sincerely. If Yang Tian knew about the goddess plan, then in the end, the god's brain was likely to fall into Yang Tian's hands. Shi-Chen Yuyu obviously understood this. She also needed Yang Tian's help, but only after she got what she wanted. Everyone was busy during this period of time. Shi-Chen Yuyu's plan had reached the critical point and was about to succeed. What she didn't expect was that suddenly, the Limitless Temple began to be under martial law. Their plan had to be suspended. But now, the opportunity was even better than before. Therefore, Shi-Chen Yuyu immediately gathered her subordinate. After listening to Black Talisman Lord's guess, she immediately said, "Whether it's because of Yang Tian or not, let's ignore him and start the operation." After Shi-Chen Yuyu finished speaking, the hundreds of trusted subordinates in the temple immediately left the main hall. Even Black Talisman Lord left. Black Talisman Lord could not participate in what was about to be done, because there was a problem with the talisman array of the temple. All the cultivators in the temple who knew talisman had to be summoned. The higher-ups requested that the Limitless Temple would not suffer great damage at all costs. Black Talisman Lord was able to enter the Limitless Temple because he was proficient in Talisman Dao. At this time, he naturally had to be called to help. The Limitless Temple had not flown far when Kuo-shing received a message from the temple. After reading the message, Kuo-shing's face still maintained a calm expression, because Yu Gui and Jimi were standing in front of him. At this time, Kuo-shing was faced with two choices. One was to immediately return to the temple and stabilize his foundation. The second was to stay here and continue the current matter. After a short consideration, Kuo-shing finally chose to stay. Because what he was going to do now was too important to him, and the temple could not compare to it. Yang Tian ran to my Limitless Temple. This person is indeed powerful. After thinking about it, Kuo-shing decided to tell Jimi and Yu Gui about what had just happened. In fact, this matter could not be hidden from the two of them. That was because there were people from the other side of the three sacred halls. Many people knew that Yang Tian had driven away the Limitless Temple, but did not know where Yang Tian was. At this time, where was Yang Tian? Chapter 774. Taking advantage of the chaos in the shrine, Yang Tian led the little blue dragon and Qing Wu Xingyang to successfully open the entrance to the everlasting shrine's interspatial storage space. However, during this process, something unexpected happened to Yang Tian. Two Destiny Comprehension Realm guards chased after them. Yang Tian originally thought that the everlasting shrine's interspatial storage space did not allow living creatures to exist. For this reason, he even had a strange program design a talisman array to isolate himself from the little blue dragon and Qing Wu Xingyang after entering the interspatial storage space. This way, they would be able to move around in the interspatial storage space smoothly. Yang Tian originally did not want to let Qing Wu Xingyang in, but Qing Wu Xingyang promised that he only needed to find the Qing Wu clan's ancient secret cultivation technique. This was also the Qing Wu clan's hope. Only then did Yang Tian know that the Qing Wu clan was actually an ancient clan in this world. During the catastrophe led by the Everlasting Shrine, only 2 people from the Qing Wu clan escaped, and these 2 people only had the most basic cultivation technique of the Qing Wu clan, since Qing Wu Xingyang had promised and Yang Tian had promised to help Qing Wu Xingyang. He thought about it and let Qing Wu Xingyang come along. What surprised Yang Tian was that this interspatial storage space could actually contain living creatures. The 2 cultivators who followed Yang Tian in did not encounter any accident. As soon as they entered the interspatial storage space, the little blue dragon transformed into a giant dragon, carrying Yang Tian and Qing Wu Xingyang as it flew forward quickly. After entering the interspatial storage space, there was a long tunnel. The structure of the tunnel was also very strange. It was actually made of countless glowing crystals suspended in the air, forming a tunnel with a diameter of more than 10 meters. The glowing crystals were constantly emitting bright light, like small light bulbs, illuminating the tunnel brighter than the outside. The arrangement of the crystals was very loose, but it was controlled by the talisman array. Even though the 2 guards who were chasing after the little azure dragon stepped on the crystals with great force, the crystals were as steady as the ground outside and did not loosen at all. After entering the tunnel, the little blue dragon flew rapidly for less than half a minute before it crashed into a talisman array. With a boom, its body was bounced back. The talisman array in the interspatial storage space was separated from the talisman array outside. In such a short period of time, no matter how fast the strange program was, it could not decipher the talisman array in front of it. What Yang Tian did not know was that when the little blue dragon crashed into this energy wall, Kuang Xing's brows tightly knitted together in the underground space far away. Only Kuang Xing could freely enter and exit the storage space of the temple. Regardless of whether it was opened or closed, Kuang Xing, as the temple master, would be able to sense it. Kuang Xing did not expect Yang Tian to break into the storage space of the temple so quickly. This time, he finally could not sit still. The little blue dragon's body spun a few times in the air before it stabilized. Yang Tian and Qing Wu Xingyang immediately jumped down from the little blue dragon's body. At this time, the 2 temple guards of the Destiny Realm had already caught up. "Xiao Long, go and kill them." After Yang Tian landed, he looked at the 2 temple guards who were quickly running towards him, and said coldly. Roar, the little blue dragon, who had not fought for a long time, let out an excited cry. Its huge body suddenly moved and rushed towards the 2 guards. Yang Tian turned around and began to decipher the talisman array with the help of the strange program. To Yang Tian, time was of the essence. In an extremely important place like this, as long as there were any abnormalities, Kuang Xing would definitely rush back as soon as possible. As for the result of the battle between the little blue dragon and the 2 guards behind it, Yang Tian was not interested in it because the result had already been decided. Although the little blue dragon was also of the Destiny Realm, its combat power was not something that the 2 temple guards could compare to. As Yang Tian waved his hands, the angry roars of the little blue dragon and the 2 temple guards could be heard from behind him. Then, there was a scream before Yang Tian could break the talisman array in front of him. The little blue dragon's battle had already ended. The 2 Destiny Realm guards had already been torn to pieces by the somewhat tyrannical little blue dragon's claws. Although the little blue dragon had extremely high intelligence like humans, it was still a mutated beast. Beasts naturally had their own bestial instincts. In addition, it had not fought for a long time. Although the little blue dragon encountered opponents that were weaker than it during the battle, it could not help but vent a little. This was the first time that Chen Wuxingyang had seen the little blue dragon fight. The result surprised him. He did not expect the little blue dragon's combat power to be so strong. "Alright, let's go." After being stunned for a moment, Chen Wuxingyang heard Yang Tian's voice from behind him. When he turned around, he realized that Yang Tian had already disappeared. Whoosh! With a gust of wind, the little blue dragon rushed into the talisman array at the end of the tunnel and disappeared from Chen Wuxingyang's sight. There was air in the tunnel. When the little blue dragon rushed, it created a gust of air that scraped against Chen Wuxingyang's face. After touching his face, Chen Wuxingyang woke up and immediately followed. He also knew that time was of the essence. If he could not keep up with Yang Tian's speed, Yang Tian would not pay attention to him. At this time, Chen Wuxingyang hoped that Kuxing would not come back so early. Because if Kuxing found out that he was a spy, he would definitely kill him immediately. Ever since he agreed to help Yang Tian, he was half forced and half willing to help Yang Tian. Chen Wuxingyang's feelings of regret kept appearing in his mind. The reason for this was because everything that Yang Tian did was unforgivable by the temple. Once he failed, he would die. There was no way out. Chen Wuxingyang's thoughts were fluctuating. Yang Tian could naturally feel it, but he did not know what Chen Wuxingyang was thinking. Yang Tian had no interest in Chen Wuxingyang's thoughts, especially now. After exiting the tunnel, a huge temple appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes. What Yang Tian did not expect was that the everlasting temple also had a huge stone palace in the interspatial space. In Yang Tian's eyes, the palace looked like a temple from ancient Greece. The main body of the palace was made up of thick and sturdy stone pillars carved with strange beasts. Above the temple, there were many large, glowing crystals floating. Yang Tian, who appeared on the stone steps of the temple, felt that it was very beautiful and spectacular. When he no longer had to work hard to cultivate and could live a normal life, he would definitely build a building like this. Yang Tian could not help but have this strange idea in his mind. Time was of the essence. Yang Tian only stayed at the bottom of the stone steps for less than 10 seconds before running towards the lookout shrine. Roar! When Yang Tian arrived at the entrance of the temple, a beastly roar came from the temple. There was actually a powerful exotic beast inside. This interspatial space was really strange. Not only did it have a huge palace, it even had a vicious beast. As the beast roared, a powerful energy fluctuation came from inside. It was actually 100 transformations realm exotic beast. Before this exotic beast appeared, the little blue dragon passed by Yang Tian and rushed into the temple. "Who is it?" Suddenly, a delicate shout was heard. A woman in white suddenly appeared in front of the temple. There was a palace, a beast, and a beautiful woman. Yang Tian was no longer surprised. It seemed that the rumors outside could not be completely trusted. Chapter 775. Such a hidden and safe space could not only be used to store things, but it could also be used for people to live here. The woman in white was very beautiful. She looked to be around 27 or 28 years old, and her entire body was exuding a mature charm. Roar! Boom! As soon as the woman in white shouted, there was a deafening roar of a beast coming from the temple. Then, there was a collision of energy, and a strong airflow rushed out of the temple, making a buzzing sound. If it was a normal temple made of stone, this airflow, which was equivalent to the explosion of high explosives, would have already caused it to collapse. Under the strong airflow, Yang Tian saw that the stone pillar suddenly lit up, emitting a faint white light, making the stone pillar look like it was made of white jade. Yang Tian was about 10 meters away from the main entrance. If he did not use his spiritual power to block the airflow, his body would have been blown away. The little blue dragon had just rushed in, and he did not know how it was doing. Yang Tian was worried about the little blue dragon when the little blue dragon suddenly rushed out from inside. At this time, the little blue dragon looked a bit haggard. Many of the scales on its body had fallen off, and it was covered in blood. One of its dragon horns was also crooked. However, this guy still had an excited look in its eyes. Judging from the aura it was emitting, it did not suffer any serious injuries. After the little blue dragon came out, a huge dragon head rushed out from inside. This was a white dragon. Its entire body was snow white and very beautiful. Moreover, this was a female dragon. No wonder the little blue dragon was still so excited after suffering a loss. The woman in white, the white dragon, and the white temple. After the white dragon came out, the woman in white standing in front of the temple gently tapped her feet, flew up, and landed lightly on the white dragon's head. At this time, Chen Wuxingyang, who came behind Yang Tian, saw the face of the woman in white and could not help but exclaim in surprise. "What's wrong?" Yang Tian glanced at the woman in white, who had a cold expression and did not reveal any emotions, like a robot, and asked. Chen Wuxingyang frowned and said, "I think I've heard of her before. Didn't she already go to Galaxy? Why are you here?" With that, Chen Wuxingyang sized up the woman in white and the white dragon beneath her and said, "Her name is Bai Xingxuan. She became famous before I was born. I heard that she went to the Sea of Stars and never came back. Why is she here?" After the woman named Bai Xingxuan stood on the white dragon's head, she did not immediately attack Yang Tian and the others. At this time, Yang Tian noticed that when Chen Wuxingyang mentioned her, her eyebrows furrowed. Her cold eyes had an instant of confusion, as well as a kind of struggle. However, Bai Xingxuan immediately regained his indifference. He looked at Yang Tian and the little blue dragon and said coldly, "Come and die." With that, Bai Xingxuan moved. His body turned into a bolt of white lightning and appeared in front of Yang Tian in the blink of an eye. Bai Xingxuan's combat prowess was no weaker than Ku Man's. In fact, he was even stronger. At the same time, the little blue dragon pounced on the white dragon again. Although the white dragon's realm was one level higher than the little blue dragon's, its seed was not good. The little blue dragon had now evolved into a golden dragon. Its genes were several levels higher than the white dragon's. In terms of physical strength alone, even the white dragon, which was one level higher than the little blue dragon, was no match for the little blue dragon. However, the white dragon's internal strength was stronger than the little blue dragon's. Overall, the little blue dragon's combat ability was not as strong as the white dragon's. Women were dangerous. Although they were physically weak and beautiful in the eyes of men, it was precisely because of this that they were more terrifying than men. Yang Tian was already on guard against Bai Xingxuan. As soon as she moved, he quickly dodged to the side. Whoosh! A sharp whistle sounded in Yang Tian's ears. Bai Xingxuan's hand directly broke through Yang Tian's spiritual defense. If Yang Tian had been a little slower, his neck would have been broken by Bai Xingxuan. Only then did Yang Tian realize that Bai Xingxuan was wearing a translucent glove made of an unknown material. The 5 fingertips of the glove were all translucent spikes about 2 inches long. The moment he dodged, Yang Tian borrowed the force of the airflow generated by Bai Xingxuan's body and the strength of his legs to shoot to the side, quickly distancing himself from Bai Xingxuan. Bai Xingxuan's body suddenly stopped when her attack missed. Her shoeless feet stepped on the stone floor with a bang. The stone floor, which was harder than iron, shattered, and debris flew everywhere. Using this powerful force, Bai Xingxuan charged at Yang Tian again. At this moment, in Yang Tian's eyes, Bai Xingxuan's figure flashed left and right. Yang Tian would not have been able to capture Bai Xingxuan's figure with his vision alone. Fortunately, Yang Tian had a unique spiritual power. When Bai Xingxuan charged at Yang Tian had already released a portion of his spiritual power. The uniqueness of his spiritual power allowed Yang Tian to know Bai Xingxuan's exact location. This was something that his vision could not keep up with. Ever since he came to this treasure vault, everything that appeared was beyond Yang Tian's expectations, especially when it came to such a powerful woman. If Yang Tian did not have a new ability, he could only run when faced with such a situation. However, things were different now. Facing Bai Xingxuan, who was charging at him, Yang Tian used his mind, and a black hole appeared between him and Bai Xingxuan. Bai Xingxuan did not know what the black sphere that suddenly appeared in front of Yang Tian was, but her cultivation level was one level higher than Yang Tian's. In terms of cultivation level, no matter what, she could directly crush Yang Tian to death with her strength during a battle. Therefore, without a second thought, Bai Xingxuan grabbed at the black hole. Yang Tian was waiting for this. With a thought, the black hole spun rapidly. At the same time, the black hole chain in Yang Tian's origin realm was activated. The black hole that Yang Tian released and connected to the black hole chain accelerated to its fastest speed in an instant. The black hole chain established in the energy world was Yang Tian's most powerful move at the moment. Bai Xingxuan had originally thought that the black hole was just a runic treasure, a treasure driven by a destiny comprehension cultivator. No matter how powerful it could not be that powerful. Bai Xingxuan was extremely confident in her combat strength. In her hazy memory from a long time ago, she seemed to have fought with a soul travel realm expert. Something that Bai Xingxuan did not expect happened. As soon as her hand reached into the black sphere, an incomparably powerful force bound half of her right arm. The special glove that she wore on her hand, refined from the dust obtained from the sea of stars, creaked and cracked. It looked like it would soon shatter. As for her arm, if not for her powerful strength protecting it, it would have been twisted off in an instant. What the hell was this thing? In her shock, Bai Xingxuan pulled her arm out with all her might, trying to pull it out of the black hole. In this short period of time, Bai Xingxuan was essentially trapped by Yang Tian. Yang Tian had rich combat experience and naturally would not let go of this opportunity. The red saber named 15 already appeared in his hand. Chapter 776. In truth, Yang Tian was still holding back on using the power of the black hole, because this was the first time he was using the power of the black hole chain in actual combat. It was like a sharp weapon. If used incorrectly, it could hurt oneself. Even if he did not use his full strength, the effect was still a pleasant surprise to Yang Tian. The difference in cultivation level was manifested in strength and speed. At this moment, Bai Xingxuan could not move for the time being, which meant that she had lost the advantage she had over Yang Tian in terms of strength and speed. Although Bai Xingxuan was a woman, and a very beautiful one at that, Yang Tian showed no mercy. He slashed at the temporarily immobilized Bai Xingxuan. What Yang Tian did not expect was that this slash easily beheaded Bai Xingxuan. Immediately after, Bai Xingxuan's headless body softened and was sucked into Yang Tian's black hole. Yang Tian was very surprised to see Bai Xingxuan killed so easily. In battle, if something unexpected happened, it would often be accompanied by danger. Yang Tian surprised Bai Xingxuan once, and this time, Bai Xingxuan surprised Yang Tian again. After Yang Tian's black hole sucked Bai Xingxuan's body in, it was instantly pulverized. Even the two gloves made of strange materials were turned into powder and converted into pure energy. What surprised Yang Tian was Bai Xingxuan's body. After Bai Xingxuan's body was pulverized, Yang Tian's black hole did not absorb much energy from her body. This was a very abnormal thing. The body of a cultivator contained a huge amount of energy. Bai Xingxuan was a cultivator of the 100 Changes realm. Logically speaking, her body should be very large after being converted into pure energy. While Yang Tian was still thinking, he saw Bai Xingxuan's head, which had fallen to the ground, fly up. Immediately, a naked, graceful female body suddenly appeared below the neck. Although this body was very tempting to men, Yang Tian felt an extreme sense of danger. The naked Bai Xingxuan did not feel embarrassed at all in front of Yang Tian, because in an instant, many fine white scales grew on her body, and her hands turned into a pair of claws. Dragon Claw. Yang Zai was all too familiar with Bai Xingxuan's transformation because he had done it many times before. Could it be that Bai Xingxuan also had the power of the dragon orb in his body? This was impossible. Yang Tian quickly rejected this idea because his relationship with the little blue dragon was too special. No matter how big the world was, it would be difficult for a partner like him and the little blue dragon to appear again. Only now did Yang Tian remember that after cultivating to the 100 transformations realm, the cells in his body had evolved to a deeper level. They were no longer restricted by spatial energy. As long as he had the corresponding genetic information, he could transform into a myriad of things. Bai Xingxuan had a white dragon as her pet beast, so naturally, she could obtain the white dragon's genetic information. It wasn't strange for her to transform into the white dragon's appearance. Of course, this genetic information wasn't easy to obtain. It wasn't the DNA that humans on Earth referred to. Instead, it contained life information and inherited memories. Yang Tian could transform into a dragon because more than 90% of the cells in his body were actually dragon cells. Moreover, he had obtained the dragon's inherited memories from the little blue dragon. After transforming into a dragon, he could move around like a dragon. To put it bluntly, inherited memories were like an operating system. If a person transformed from a human into another creature, no matter how long they were given, they wouldn't be able to move freely in their transformed body. After transforming, Bai Xingxuan only grew scales on her body. There weren't many other changes. In Yang Tian's eyes, her current appearance was actually sexier than when she was naked. Perhaps this was because Yang Tian had dragon genes in his body. Yang Tian's guess about Bai Xingxuan was completely correct. The difference between her and Yang Tian was that Yang Tian had the dragon orb in his body, but she didn't. Yang Tian had the dragon orb's power in his body, but so did she. After Bai Xingxuan's head was chopped off by Yang Tian, her body grew back, and white scales appeared on her body. This was an extremely fast process. Not far away, Qing Wu Xingyang only blinked twice before Bai Xingxuan's transformation was complete. Only a cultivator of Yang Tian's level could clearly see Bai Xingxuan's transformation process. In the battle between Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan, as well as the battle between the little blue dragon and the white dragon, Qing Wu Xingyang couldn't intervene. He couldn't help at all. Because his strength was too weak, he could only be a spectator at this time. Bai Xingxuan and the white dragon completely ignored Qing Wu Xingyang. If Yang Tian and the little blue dragon were defeated in the end, Qing Wu Xingyang would be in trouble as well. Therefore, when he saw Yang Tian and the others fighting, he took the opportunity to hide behind a stone pillar, far away. After the transformation, Bai Xingxuan didn't immediately attack Yang Tian, because she was somewhat afraid of Yang Tian's black hole. Cultivators of the 100 Changes realm didn't only have powerful bodies, but also powerful wills. The two complemented each other. In that instant, Bai Xingxuan wrapped almost all of her power with her powerful will and sent it into her head, using this method to escape. In truth, even if Yang Tian's blade aura had hit Bai Xingxuan, it wouldn't have caused any fatal damage to her. Bai Xingxuan used this method to escape because she was afraid. She could sense that Yang Tian hadn't used his full strength. In addition to that, Bai Xingxuan also felt that her soul was about to be devoured at that moment. The two of them stopped and finally turned their attention to the battle between the little blue dragon and the white dragon. The battle between Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan seemed to take a long time, but in reality, it didn't even take 2 minutes. In those 2 minutes, the little blue dragon and the white dragon were entangled together like two snakes. There was even some ambiguity between them. From a human's point of view, that was the case. In reality, the two dragons were competing in physical strength. When Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan stopped, the two dragons had reached a critical moment. Roar! Suddenly, the white dragon roared and bit at the little blue dragon's neck. The little blue dragon tilted its head and dodged. Then, it opened its mouth and breathed out a golden dragon flame at the white dragon. The little blue dragon's dragon flame was very hot. Even from 100 meters away, when the dragon flame appeared, one would feel a scorching heat. The white dragon's ability was the exact opposite of the little blue dragon's. As soon as the little blue dragon's dragon flame came out, it emitted a white aura that was extremely cold. When it came into contact with the dragon flame, there was a sizzling sound. Chapter 777. The white dragon's cold air could actually withstand the little blue dragon's dragon flames. With a sizzling sound, the temperature around them dropped. The little blue dragon was not convinced, and lightning flashed between its horns. Crack boom, a strong electric light flashed, and there was a thunderous roar. At such a close distance, and the speed of the electric current was very fast, the white dragon was hit by the powerful electric current released by the little blue dragon. This electric current came from the little blue dragon's body. Although it was entangled with the white dragon, the little blue dragon would not be hurt by the electric current released by itself. But the white dragon was different. After being hit by this powerful electric current, its body went limp, and it shook its head dizzily. The little blue dragon took this opportunity and bit the white dragon's neck. Roar! The white dragon let out a roar in great pain. Immediately, with a loud bang, the white dragon's energy exploded, and it separated itself from the little blue dragon's body. But the little blue dragon bit the white dragon's neck tightly and did not let go. At this time, a large amount of blood could be seen flowing out from the little blue dragon's mouth. Some of it was the white dragon's, and some of it was the little blue dragon's own blood. The energy released by the white dragon just now had caused the little blue dragon to suffer serious internal injuries. The body structure of a dragon and a snake was actually similar, and the neck was the weakest part of the body. The little blue dragon, who was not as strong as the white dragon, would of course not let go of this opportunity to defeat the white dragon. The bodies of the two dragons were quickly entangled again. Roar, boom, as they rolled, the two dragons' huge bodies collided with the thick stone pillars from time to time, causing the entire temple to tremble and let out a deafening roar. The stone pillars released a light again, blocking the collision of the two dragons. If it were not for the protection of the talisman array, the entire temple would have been destroyed by the battle between the two dragons. Seeing this, Bai Xingxuan's thin eyebrows furrowed. While Yang Tian was watching the battle between the two dragons, he was also paying attention to Bai Xingxuan. Finally, when Bai Xingxuan saw the white dragon howling in pain, he couldn't hold it in any longer and rushed towards the two dragons. The slightly transformed Bai Xingxuan was even faster than before. However, since she was being watched by Yang Tian, she did not notice that a trace of Yang Tian's mental power had already wrapped around her body. This power was extremely weak and moved with the airflow. Coupled with the uniqueness of his mental power, Bai Xingxuan did not notice it even though he was a level higher than Yang Tian. Although Yang Tian's visual nerves could not keep up with Bai Xingxuan's, he could rely on his mental power to know her constantly changing position even if Bai Xingxuan's speed was twice as fast. What Yang Tian didn't expect was that when Bai Xingxuan rushed towards the two dragons, he suddenly turned back and pounced at Yang Tian. Yang Tian was not surprised at all because in Bai Xingxuan's eyes, he was the #1 opponent. Bai Xingxuan really did not want to fight an opponent whose level was lower than hers, but Yang Tian was a surprise to her. If she did not use something similar to a sneak attack, she was not confident that she could defeat Yang Tian. After countless years of cultivation and battles, This was the first time Bai Xingxuan had encountered something like this. In just an instant, Bai Xingxuan arrived in front of Yang Tian. Unlike before, the airflow brought about by Bai Xingxuan's fast speed was not as violent as before. Fortunately, Yang Tian was prepared. At this moment, in Yang Tian's vision, Bai Xingxuan was still rushing towards the two entangled and rolling dragons, but he was already in front of Yang Tian. Fortunately, Yang Tian was prepared. Otherwise, even if he had a killer move like the black hole chain, he would have a hard time dealing with Bai Xingxuan, who was so fast. Bai Xingxuan's hands had already turned into dragon claws. Compared to Yang Tian's transformed appearance, this pair of dragon claws was much more slender and beautiful. However, its destructive power was not something that the current Yang Tian could compare to. Bai Xingxuan used her fastest speed and greatest strength to stab at Yang Tian's chest. This attack was actually aimed at severely injuring Yang Tian, unlike the last time when she wanted to kill Yang Tian. However, the result was the same as last time. Before her white dragon claws could touch Yang Tian's body, they came into contact with a black mirror. Yang Tian's mind moved, and the black hole appeared once again. Based on physical speed alone, even if Yang Tian knew Bai Xingxuan's trajectory, it would be difficult for him to dodge. However, the black hole was different. No matter how fast his opponent was, they would not be faster than his mind. Bai Xingxuan had already predicted that Yang Tian would use that strange move again. When she saw the darkness before her, her nerves tensed up and she immediately retracted her claws and retreated. When she attacked, Bai Xingxuan had been guarding against this move. Fortunately, she retreated in time. The moment her claws came into contact with the black mirror-like black hole, she retreated. Otherwise, it would have been even harder for her to escape. After using the black hole chain skill once, Yang Tian had gained some confidence. This time, he increased the speed of the black hole chain in the energy world by 1 level. Although it was only 1 level, the combined energy of the 12 black holes was at least twice as powerful as the black holes he released earlier. As she retreated, Bai Xingxuan felt a strong suction force pulling her back. "What kind of move is this?" Bai Xingxuan asked with a frown after retreating more than 20 meters and noticing that Yang Tian wasn't coming after her. Although Bai Xingxuan was a woman, she had cultivated to such a level and had a white dragon as her pet beast. Under the influence of the white dragon, it was only natural for her to be belligerent. She had seen countless defensive and offensive moves from her opponents, but she had never seen a cultivator at the Destiny realm who could rely on powerful offensive moves or talisman treasures to render an opponent at the transformation realm helpless, or even at a disadvantage. For a moment, Bai Xingxuan's interest in Yang Tian was piqued. "I can't tell you that," Yang Tian said with a smile. When Yang Tian said that, Bai Xingxuan knew that she had asked a stupid question. No opponent would answer it. Roar! Boom! At that moment, the little blue dragon and the white dragon roared at the same time, followed by a loud noise. The two dragons had reached the end of their battle. They used their most powerful force to break a stone pillar. Because of this broken stone pillar, a part of the temple that was supported by this stone pillar collapsed with a rumble. The two dragons were separated from each other because of that and lay there limply. If it weren't for the fact that their dragon eyes were still wide open and the two dragon whiskers by their lips were still swaying, one would have thought that they were about to die. Yang Tian could sense that the little blue dragon was weak at the moment, but he was still very excited. It was probably the same for the white dragon. The two dragons had lost their strength in the battle. Yang Tian couldn't help but be impressed by the little blue dragon. That was because this guy could still fight to a draw against an opponent who was 1 level higher than him. Chapter 778. Seeing the little blue dragon and the white dragon both collapsed, Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan could not help but look at each other. Immediately, the two of them tensed up again. Was the battle about to start again? "If you can defeat me, You can get the key to the Wuji Temple's treasury. Looking into Yang Tian's eyes, a hexagonal red token appeared in Bai Xingxuan's hand. There was a faint fluctuation of rune energy on it. Yang Tian smiled. You're the guard of the treasury? Bai Xingxuan shook his head. I know why you're here. Kuang Xing gave this to me for safekeeping. Without this key, you won't be able to open the treasury. What's your relationship? Yang Tian asked again. In Bai Xingxuan's opinion, Yang Tian did not care about the treasury at all. Instead, he seemed to be very interested in her. When Yang Tian asked this question, a trace of confusion appeared in Bai Xingxuan's eyes again. From Yang Tian's experience, Bai Xingxuan seemed to have lost a trace of his memory. Boom! Before Bai Xingxuan could answer, a loud noise suddenly came from the temple. Then, a figure flew out of the temple and fell on the stone steps in front of the temple. He looked extremely miserable. It was Chen Wuxingyang. While Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan, as well as the little blue dragon and the white dragon, were fighting, Chen Wuxingyang sneaked into the temple. The light in the temple was dim, and it was extremely empty. There were no furnishings. As the airflow surged, there were bursts of whistling wind. It seemed that the sounds from outside could not be heard. Chen Wuxingyang was not an earthling, so he naturally did not have the concept of ghosts in his mind. But in this environment, there was a trace of fear in his heart. Because, ever since he entered the temple, he kept feeling that he was being watched by more than one thing. Although he had this feeling, he could not detect the other's aura. He braced himself and ran around inside. Soon, Chen Wuxingyang found that he was lost and had lost his sense of direction. From the outside, the temple didn't look very big, but the space inside was like an entire world. Thus, he continued to run in one direction. In just a short moment, he had run thousands of steps. He should have reached the edge of the temple long ago. However, in his eyes, other than the thick stone pillar, there was nothing else. Chen Wuxingyang suddenly understood that he was trapped in a talisman array. With his attainments in the Tao of talismans, it was impossible for him to get out. However, Chen Wuxingyang was not discouraged, because he knew that Yang Tian was outside. When Yang Tian solved the problem outside, he would naturally come in. With Yang Tian's ability in talisman Taoism, it should be easy for him to break this array that was composed of space talisman array, time talisman array, illusion array, and other talisman arrays. The passage of time in the Divine Palace was different from the passage of time outside. It should be many times faster. I hope it's not tens or millions of times, Chen Wuxingyang muttered to himself. He squatted under a thick stone pillar and waited patiently. If the passage of time here was exaggerated, let alone hundreds of thousands of times, even if it was 1,000 times faster, he estimated that he would have to wait here for a long time. You are a member of the Limitless sect. Why did you break into the forbidden area? Chen Wuxingyang just closed his eyes and prepared to rest. Suddenly, a faint voice came from the side, as if it came from the deepest part of the whistling wind. Chen Wuxingyang suddenly opened his eyes. What appeared in front of him was a translucent old man. There was no energy fluctuation on the old man. You are a spiritual body. All of a sudden, Chen Wuxingyang cried out in surprise. The so-called spiritual body was, in fact, a consciousness that existed outside of the physical body. Under normal circumstances, without the support of the physical body, even a soul travel realm cultivator's consciousness could temporarily leave the body and go to a faraway place. It was only for a short time, and it couldn't last long. However, the old man in front of Chen Wuxingyang seemed to have existed for a long time. After his spiritual body left the physical body, it didn't dissipate. Why was that? Soon, Chen Wuxingyang thought of the reason. It was probably because this was a special space. Several thoughts flashed through Chen Wuxingyang's mind. He heard the old man say, "You are right. This old man is a spiritual body." After the old man finished speaking, he continued, You haven't answered this old man's question. Chen Guoxingyang wasn't afraid of the old man in front of him. He rolled his eyes and said, "Because the limitless temple has been destroyed." Humph! Chen Guoxingyang had just said the word destroyed when a cold snort suddenly came from the side. This cold snort didn't come from the old man in front of him, but from another spiritual body. As soon as the voice disappeared, a very sturdy middle-aged man appeared in front of Chen Guoxingyang. This person's body was naturally translucent. Another spiritual body. Chen Guoxingyang's eyes widened again, and he couldn't help but stand up from the ground. Chen Guoxingyang was even more surprised to see this middle-aged man than when he saw the old man first. "You are Palace Master Ma Hong." After standing up, Chen Guoxingyang saw the middle-aged man getting closer and closer to him and said in a somewhat puzzled tone. The middle-aged man stopped about 10 meters away from Chen Guoxingyang. He didn't answer Chen Guoxingyang's question, which was obviously a tacit admission. This person was Palace Master Ma Hong, the previous Palace Master of the Limitless Temple. Quang Xing hadn't taken over the Limitless Temple for long, which meant that Palace Master Ma Hong had just died. Chen Guoxingyang had seen Ma Hong alive, no, with a physical body. In fact, a spiritual body was also a kind of living body. It was just that once it left the body, the time it could exist was more limited. Ma Hong didn't say anything. Soon, dozens of people suddenly came around Chen Guoxingyang. Most of them looked like old men, and only a few were young. These people were all former palace masters of the Limitless Temple, Soul Travel Realm powerhouses. However, time was a merciless knife. Even Soul Travel Realm powerhouses couldn't live indefinitely. "Did you just say that the temple was destroyed?" a young spirit asked excitedly as he looked at Chen Guoxingyang with expectant eyes. It seemed like he was looking forward to the destruction of the Limitless Temple. "Impossible!" Ma Hong waved his hand and said, "The Limitless Temple can never be destroyed." As he spoke, Ma Hong slapped Chen Guoxingyang with his palm. The seemingly light palm had sent Chen Guoxingyang flying out of the temple. This was the scene that Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan saw. Bai Xingxuan wasn't seriously injured. With his realm, he could recover very quickly. He understood that Palace Master Ma Hong had deliberately let him out. "What's going on?" Yang Tian looked at Chen Guoxingyang and asked with a frown. He thought that since Chen Guoxingyang suddenly flew out, there must be people or mutated beasts or something inside. It seemed like it wasn't as easy to get the Limitless Temple's wealth. Chapter 779. Those temple masters are still alive. They haven't died yet. Chen Guoxingyang gave a brief account of what happened to him inside to Yang Tian. Less than 5 minutes had passed since Chen Guoxingyang entered the temple and was kicked out by Temple Master Tai Hong. However, Chen Guoxingyang had spent at least a few hours inside. Chen Guoxingyang had spent more than half of his time just looking for a way out. The temple masters in the history of the Wuji Temple were all still alive? And they were all in spirit form. Yang Tian was very surprised by this news. Based on Chen Guoxingyang's experience, it seemed that those temple masters still retained their powerful strength. Yang Tian looked at the pitch-black temple, his emotions fluctuating. He wanted nothing more than to go in and check it out immediately. However, Bai Xingxuan was already blocking the door. The white dragon had also recovered its strength and returned to Bai Xingxuan's side. It seemed that he really had to defeat this woman. Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan looked at each other. There was a strong desire to fight in their eyes. Whoosh! Yang Tian was the first to move. He raised his sword and slashed. A red sword chi cut through the air and charged toward Bai Xingxuan at lightning speed. Compared to the power of the black hole, Yang Tian's sword chi was no threat to Bai Xingxuan at all. Bai Xingxuan raised his hand. The 5 fingers of his hand that had turned into a dragon claw opened and closed, easily dispersing Yang Tian's sword chi. At this moment, Yang Tian smiled and said loudly, "Again?" With that, he slashed at Bai Xingxuan again. Seeing that Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan were fighting again, Chen Wu Xingyang quickly dodged to the side. Then, he took out something that looked like a high-tech electronic device from his storage bracelet. Then, he whispered something in a language that Yang Tian did not understand. In this space, even electromagnetic waves could not be transmitted to the outside. The thing in Chen Wu Xingyang's hand was probably a recording device. He wanted to describe everything that had happened here in detail. Later on, even if something happened to him, as long as this recording device could appear outside, the Chen Wu clan would be able to receive the information in time. As for the language that Chen Wu Xingyang spoke, it was probably the clan language of the Chen Wu clan. Yang Tian had no interest in paying attention to Chen Wu Xingyang. He slashed at Bai Xingxuan 3 times in a very short time. What surprised Bai Xingxuan was that each of Yang Tian's 3 attacks weaker than the previous one. After dispersing Yang Tian's 3 sword qi, a look of contempt appeared in Bai Xingxuan's eyes. Bai Xingxuan Xian's, Xingxuan's s, tt, Xian s, tt. She ssssst sss in ttst ss that. SS's. In his heart, Bai Xingxuan was very impressed with Yang Tian. From her point of view, even if Yang Tian didn't use that powerful technique from before, with his current strength, he could be considered one of the top cultivators in the destiny comprehension realm. Also, Yang Tian's power was extremely strange. After entering her body, it would cause an extremely strong destructive force to her cells. Although she had never seen a cultivator killed by Yang Tian with this kind of power and what their corpses looked like, she could imagine. After receiving 3 slashes from Yang Tian, Bai Xingxuan suddenly moved and charged at Yang Tian again. As soon as Bai Xingxuan moved, 3 figures appeared before Yang Tian's eyes. During the previous battle, Bai Xingxuan realized that Yang Tian seemed to have a special way to surpass the 5 senses and detect her movements in a timely manner. In fact, Bai Xingxuan was famous for her speed. Most of the cultivators she defeated were defeated by her speed. There was nothing that could not be broken, only speed could not be broken. The 3 silhouettes were all fake. Yang Tian's mental power had been sticking to Bai Xingxuan's body, moving along with the airflow. When Bai Xingxuan moved, Yang Tian naturally knew where she was going. This time, however, Bai Xingxuan caused his mental power to lose its target. This made Yang Tian realize that Bai Xingxuan seemed to have understood something through the battle earlier. She might not have known that he had mental power, but she was guarding against it in such a way. For Yang Tian, losing track of Bai Xingxuan meant that his consciousness was in danger. In an instant, Yang Tian moved as well, but he charged toward the main entrance of the basilica. Chen Wu Xingyang's explanation made Yang Tian realize that there was a strange space inside the basilica that was formed by talisman formations. That space could allow spirits to exist for a long time. Furthermore, those spirits also possessed a certain amount of power by relying on that space. Yang Tian, who was charging at high speed, suddenly felt a sense of danger. The danger came from above. But in an instant it appeared on his left. Bai Xingxuan's speed of changing positions was insane. Other than her, only cultivators in the mental wander realm could do it. It seemed that Bai Xingxuan had been holding back in her battle with Yang Tian earlier. That was to be expected. If she had revealed her trump card right from the start, it would have been an act of suicide. Of course, only cultivators in the same realm would do such a thing. In the battle between Yang Tian and Bai Xingxuan was not holding back. She just thought that there was no need to go all out against Yang Tian. She did not expect that she would not be able to win against Yang Tian if she did not use her most powerful fighting style. Pfft. Bai Xingxuan finally appeared and made her move. Her left claw broke through Yang Tian's defensive power right away. She then turned her claw into a fist and punched Yang Tian's back. At that moment, she was still several meters away from the basilica's door. Yang Tian's body was smashed into the basilica's door like a cannonball. Seeing Yang Tian's body being smashed into the basilica's door, the little blue dragon, who was already weak, forcibly interrupted its breathing. It slapped its tail on the ground and pushed off with its hind legs, rushing into the basilica as well. Neither Bai Xingxuan nor the white dragon stopped the little blue dragon's actions. At that moment, a strange look flashed across Bai Xingxuan's eyes. The battle this time was extremely short. When Yang Tian and the little blue dragon both entered the basilica, Chen Wuxingyang was startled. When he came back to his senses, he also rushed into the basilica. Bai Xingxuan did not stop Chen Wuxingyang either. "You! How dare you!" When Chen Wuxingyang's body disappeared into the darkness of the basilica, a cold shout suddenly sounded. Then, Kuo Xing appeared at the basilica's door. Looking at Bai Xingxuan's transformed appearance, the dissatisfaction in Kuo Xing's eyes became even stronger. He said, "With your strength, Yang Tian can't break in." When he said this, Kuo Xing's tone was not as cold as before. "I didn't do it on purpose," Bai Xingxuan said calmly. "You just came back. You don't know how powerful Yang Tian is." Kuo Xing no longer blamed Bai Xingxuan. He let out a long breath, turned around, frowned at the basilica's door, and rushed in. Chapter 780. As soon as he entered the temple, the light dimmed and the space became incomparably wide. In Yang Tian's eyes, apart from the stone floor, there were stone pillars with a diameter of 3 meters. Each stone pillar was engraved with runes, as well as some relief carvings of beasts that looked very fierce. Sure enough, Yang Tian glanced at the surroundings and thought. This space was indeed formed by talisman arrays. Not only did the space become incomparably wide, even the flow of time was much faster than outside. Yang Tian judged from Chen Wuxingyang's description that the flow of time here was about 100 times faster than outside. 100 times might not seem like much, but if one was trapped here, it would be a fate worse than death. Sometimes, time was the most torturous thing, especially when one had no interest in life and was in despair. This space was built by a temple master of the Limitless Temple, who had very high attainments in the Tao of Talisman in order to obtain eternal life. The stronger a person was, the more they feared death. This was because the strong had special privileges and could enjoy things that ordinary humans could not. After this space was built, the temple master had achieved his goal. When his life was about to end, he gave up his physical body and came to this temple. Although the flow of time here was faster than outside, it could ensure that the spirit body would never dissipate. With talisman arrays, it could also possess powerful strength. However, it was limited to this space. If one left this place, the spirit body would quickly dissipate. The spirit body of the temple master who built this temple was no longer here because he could not bear this kind of confinement. This was because the spirit body still had the same emotions as humans, like joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. However, the spirit body could not cultivate, could not enjoy the pleasure of delicious food and power, and could not come into contact with the physical body of a living person. Later on, the same was true for the previous temple masters. Before they died, their spirit bodies would come here. For a short period of time, they could still make do and continue to live for the sake of existence. However, after a long time, they could not help but feel bored. If it continued for a long time, it would be worse than death. Yuan Shihong was the previous temple master and had not been here for long, so he still had hope. In fact, he had long known about the situation here. Before passing on the position of hall master to Kuo Xing, he had made Kuo Xing promise him that he would find the method of immortality so that he could regain his physical body. In fact, after the palace master of this space was created, every succeeding palace master would request the same thing from the new palace master. However, after so long, they still didn't get any result. Then, they saw that their successors had also arrived. One had to know that the flow of time here was 100 times faster than outside. The old man who had appeared in front of Qinggu Xingyang appeared in front of Yang Tian again. For some reason, the old man felt a strong sense of hope that he had never felt before when he saw Yang Tian. This was a kind of intuition. It could also be said to be a sixth sense. In fact, after losing his physical body, this kind of intuition was even more accurate. The old man trusted his judgment. "What's your name?" A faint voice entered Yang Tian's ears. Spiritual bodies were a special kind of energy. They would not emit energy waves, especially in a space like this. To others, the old man's appearance would seem very sudden. However, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon had already sensed the old man when he approached. This was because Yang Tian and the little blue dragon both had spiritual power. Among the energy that cultivators possessed, only spiritual power would have an effect on spiritual bodies. What the old man and the other spiritual bodies did not know was that Yang Tian's arrival was like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. The tigers were, of course, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon who had spiritual power. They were naturally lambs waiting to be slaughtered. "My name is Yang Tian." Looking at the translucent old man, Yang Tian said with a curious expression. If he was not mistaken, after cultivating for so many years, Yang Tian had finally seen a ghost. Yes, in Yang Tian's eyes, the spiritual bodies of these temple masters were actually ghosts. In fact, after an ordinary human died, the spiritual body that left the physical body could also remain for a long time under special circumstances. Those environments, without exception, were all dark and quiet, similar to the environment here. Yang Tian, a very strange name. "You're not a human from this world, are you?" The old man asked again, his tone very amiable. Yang Tian nodded. The old man continued to ask, "Yang Tian, can you do us a favor?" Yang Tian said, "Tell me first." Although the Wuji temple was very annoying to Yang Tian, the old man in front of him had no grudges with him. If it was not an excessive request, Yang Tian would agree. "Thank you." The old man said, "We want you to destroy this place. This place should not exist in the first place." The old man's words surprised Yang Tian. Because after this place was destroyed, the old man's spiritual body would also dissipate. Seeing Yang Tian's confusion, the old man began to explain. After the old man finished speaking, Yang Tian understood. This was actually similar to when he first came in. At that time, Yang Tian also imagined that after he died, his soul would come here. In the end, it was not good. Yang Tian came here to destroy the Wuji temple. Once the Wuji temple no longer existed, this place would naturally be destroyed as well. Of course, the old man did not know about this. With regards to this request, Yang Tian naturally agreed to it. However, Yang Tian still said to the old man, "The spiritual body has dissipated, there is nothing left. It would be great if the spirit body could reincarnate." "Reincarnation!" the old man exclaimed. The old man felt that these 4 words were a way to save them. Reincarnation, this kind of saying, only humans on Earth had. Yang Tian casually explained to the old man. For example, the world of the living was the world of the living, and after people died, they would go to the netherworld. Unexpectedly, after the old man heard Yang Tian's explanation, his eyes lit up, and he asked excitedly, "Is there really such a world?" Yang Tian shook his head. "The netherworld is a world of imagination. It is a kind of comfort that humans seek. Compared to us cultivators, ordinary humans care more about relationship. Think about it, seeing your family leave this world and completely cease to exist. How sad would that be? If they go to the netherworld after death, even if they forget us in the next life and have nothing to do with us, they still haven't disappeared, right?" The old man was the palace master of the Wuji temple and a native of this strange world, so he naturally did not understand the importance of family. Therefore, he was not excited. On the contrary, Yang Tian, who was talking about this matter, was a little depressed. The old man pondered for a moment. Suddenly, an expression of enlightenment appeared on his face. He smiled and said, "I finally understand." "Understand what?" While Yang Tian was puzzled, the old man turned around and disappeared in a flash. Chapter 781. As soon as the old man left, the other spirits appeared before Yang Tian's eyes. They had arrived a long time ago, but they were hidden in the shadows and did not show themselves. Yang Tian had already noticed them when he was talking to the old man. "You get out!" Just like before, Hu Jinhong's attitude was the opposite of the old man's. Most of the spirits hoped to be freed. Only Hu Jinhong and a small number of spirits had hope for the future. Yang Tian did not care about these spirits at all. Being in this space, perhaps to others these spirits were still a great threat, but to Yang Tian they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. This was because Yang Tian had mind power. Yang Tian did not know that the middle-aged man who had appeared before him and shouted at him was the previous temple master, Hu Jinhong. Without even thinking, Yang Tian slashed at Hu Jinhong with his blade. At this moment, Yang Tian was very unhappy. Qi, the red blade aura, easily passed through Hu Jinhong's body. Hu Jinhong did not dodge Yang Tian's attack at all because he was a spirit. Other than the energy of the rune of life, no other energy had any effect on him. "It's useless. Your attack has no effect on me." Hu Jinhong looked at Yang Tian with a contemptuous expression and said indifferently, "Useless?" The slash just now was just a casual slash by Yang Tian. He did not use mind power. The reason he did not use mind power was also a test by Yang Tian. He wanted to know if the force would cause harm to spirit. One must know that one of the three types of energy that made up the force was mind power. The result disappointed Yang Tian. Seeing the disappointment in Yang Tian's eyes, Hu Jinhong sneered. His illusory body flashed and instantly appeared in front of Yang Tian. During this process, Yang Tian clearly felt that powerful rune energy was poured into Hu Jinhong's spirit. Yang Tian was not from the everlasting temple, so Hu Jinhong used the strongest rune energy he could muster and slammed his palm at Yang Tian's chest. Hu Jinhong's speed surprised Yang Tian. He was even faster than Bai Xingxuan outside. Perhaps it was because Hu Jinhong was a spirit. However, Hu Jinhong's attack needed the energy of the rune array. Therefore, the entire process of attacking Yang Tian was actually slower than Bai Xingxuan. However, the energy of his attack was several times stronger than Bai Xingxuan's. If he did not dodge and took the hit, Yang Tian's body would not be able to withstand it. Yang Tian had long been on guard against Yuan Shihong. The moment Yuan Shihong appeared in front of him and started accumulating energy, Yang Tian dodged to the side. Peng! However, it was not only Hu Jinhong who attacked Yang Tian. A young-looking spirit slammed his palm on Yang Tian's shoulder. The strength of this palm was not very strong and could not be compared to the energy Hu Jinhong had accumulated. However, Yang Tian's body was still sent flying. Before his body landed on the ground, a thin old man appeared in the air below Yang Tian. His eyes were full of ferocity. Some of these spirit bodies wanted to kill Yang Tian and not let his existence affect them. The old man's faction remained neutral. They wanted to get Yang Tian's help and let Yang Tian free them. However, they did not help Yang Tian at this time. After death, those who were qualified to continue living here were all temple masters. When they were alive, they were all soul travel realm experts and were confident that they could kill Yang Tian with a single finger. However, the strength they had now was borrowed. Their combat strength was not even 1% of their original strength. In order to kill Yang Tian, they did not hesitate to put down their pride and join hands. Yang Tian, who was in the air, could not borrow the powerful strength to move his body in a short time and leave the thin old man's attack range. However, he was not worried at this moment because the little blue dragon on his shoulder moved. The little blue dragon did not transform into a giant dragon. Instead, it shot out from Yang Tian's shoulder, opened its mouth, and inhaled at the old man. The little blue dragon naturally knew that to kill these spirit bodies, he had to use his mental strength. At this moment, it looked like it was inhaling and wanted to suck the thin old man's spirit body into its stomach. However, in reality, it was releasing a powerful mental strength. After swallowing a large amount of leaves from the world tree, the little blue dragon's mental strength had increased by a lot. Once it released its mental strength, it wrapped around the thin old man. At this time, the thin old man was about to finish accumulating energy and launch a fatal attack on Yang Tian. However, suddenly, he felt a strange and powerful energy wrap around him. What frightened him was that as soon as this strange energy came into contact with his body was like ice touching fire, melting at an extremely fast speed. Not only that, his energy connection with the talisman formation was also suddenly cut off. In other words, under the effect of the little blue dragon's mental strength, this thin old man could no longer use any power. He was no different from a spirit body formed after the death of an ordinary human. Whoosh, a strong airflow formed and quickly rushed into the little blue dragon's small mouth. The thin old man's spirit body was like a wisp of smoke in the wind. Before he could warn his companions, he followed the airflow and entered the little blue dragon's mouth. There were no conditions for a spirit body to exist in the little blue dragon's body, so it dissipated in an instant. This temple master of the everlasting temple, who had existed a long, long time ago, finally disappeared from this world completely. This process was extremely short. Yuan Shihong and another spirit body that looked young could not help but turn pale with fright when they saw this. At this time, they finally realized that they were just spirit. Spirits were too weak and should stay away from living people. However, it was too late for regret. Before Yang Tian landed on the ground, he slashed at Yuan Shihong and the spirit that looked like a young man. This time, Yang Tian used his mental strength. These two red saber cheese were completely different from the saber cheese that Yang Tian used before. In the past, in order to strengthen the attack power of the saber cheese, Yang Tian tried his best to condense the saber cheese. At this time, the saber cheese that he slashed out dissipated at an extremely fast speed after leaving the saber. The little blue dragon easily killed the thin old man, making Yang Tian realize that the spirits here were weaker than he had imagined. Therefore, even if the saber cheese dissipated, they could still cause fatal damage to these spirits. This was because Yang Tian used his mental strength. The two saber cheese quickly turned into a large net that covered Yuan Shihong and the spirit body that looked young. It was also because of his mental strength that the two saber cheese were extremely fast. At this time, Yuan Shihong and the other spirit body that looked young were not far from Yang Tian. Because Yang Tian's attack was extremely sudden, the two spirits realized that the saber cheese were about to reach them and lost the chance to dodge. Chapter 782. The two spirits were not worried about the net-like saber chi because they believed that Yang Tian's saber chi could not hurt them. At this moment, in their hearts, the most dangerous person was not Yang Tian, but the little blue dragon. Of course, they would not wait for death at this moment. They reflexively accumulated a portion of rune energy in an extremely short period of time, wanting to disperse the saber chi that was coming at them. The result? Not only was Yuan Shihong and the other spirit frightened, but Yang Tian was also surprised. This was because after the two saber chi enveloped the two spirits, the red saber in his hand, 15, actually erupted with a strange phenomenon. The saber chi that enveloped the two spirits suddenly returned and entered the red saber. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After absorbing the two spirits, The saber suddenly lit up with a red light and trembled slightly, emitting a buzzing sound. A top-notch weapon had a spirit. This saber was incomparably tough and had a mysterious origin. Ever since Yang Tian obtained it and cultivated to his current realm, he could still use it because he could not find a better weapon than this saber. However, all this time, this saber gave Yang Tian the feeling that it was half asleep. Under special circumstances, especially after absorbing enough energy, it would suddenly erupt, increasing Yang Tian's combat strength by more than a level. However, it would quickly fall silent. However, at this moment Yang Tian finally felt that this saber was finally about to come to life. It conveyed an emotion to Yang Tian. That was, it needed more of such powerful spirit bodies. In this space, there was nothing else but many powerful spirits. When these people were alive, they were all top powerhouses in this world. Naturally, their spirits were also the top in this world. This made Yang Tian suddenly realize that the reason why the saber had not woken up all this time was because it looked down on the spirits of the lives it had killed. This was the pride of a divine weapon. 15 suddenly came to life, and emitted an aura that made the little blue dragon very uncomfortable because it seemed to have heard the wails of its own kind. One had to know that this saber had killed dragons before, and more than one at that. The era of dragon slaying was also very long ago. It did not know how powerful the dragons it killed were. Although the little blue dragon was unhappy with this saber, it would not object to Yang Tian using this saber because it understood that no matter how powerful the saber was, it was just a tool. In fact, it was better to be controlled by Yang Tian. Yang Tian would never use this saber against it. 15's desire, of course, was satisfied by Yang Tian, especially under such perfect conditions. Even if they were full of despair for the future and hope immediately dissipated, the aura in Yang's saber still made them feel fear. Amidst the buzzing of the saber, more than 10 spirits fled in all directions. Yang Tian looked at the fleeing spirits and could not help but sneer. He thought to himself, "These people are still afraid of death." Yang Tian thought so, but the reality was that these spirits felt that if they did not leave immediately and were absorbed by the red saber in Yang Tian's hand, they would not die, but they would be in pain all the time. At that time, what would torture them would no longer be the passage of time and the despair of the future, but endless pain, a pain that was 100 times, 1,000 times more painful than physical pain. At this time, how could Yang Tian let these spirits escape? Looking at the fleeing spirits, Yang Tian smiled and said to the little blue dragon, "Xiao Long, catch them, I want to feed them to the saber." After the spirits heard Yang Tian's cold voice, they fled even faster. It was not until they hid in the talisman array of the stone pillar that they felt a little safer. Feed the saber. These 2 words pierced deeply into the souls of these spirits. When they were still alive, no one dared to, and no one had the ability to feed them to the saber. But reality was so cruel. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon were very fast. When the spirits fled, although Yang Tian immediately took action, he only caught one spirit. The process of capturing was very simple. Just like before, he slashed at the spirit. At this time, there was no need for Yang Tian to deliberately control the saber aura. 15, who had already awakened, would automatically absorb these spirits. The little blue dragon did not gain anything, but it discovered one thing, and that was that the spirits had all escaped into the talisman array on the stone pillar in the end. After Yang Tian learned of this, he began to carefully observe these stone pillars. At this time, for Yang Tian, there was still plenty of time, because spending nearly 2 hours here was only a minute outside. Compared to the stone pillars outside, every stone pillar here was not made of simple stone. Instead, it was made of a gray stone that was dug out from the ice layer 10,000 meters below the cold zone. Under the protection of the talisman array, an extremely long time had passed, and these stone pillars were still emitting a faint cold air. This kind of stone was indeed a good place for spirits to stay. Spirits were different from physical bodies. As long as there was a slight gap, they could pass through, and even directly pass through some materials that did not have a magnetic field. Peng Yang Tian slashed at the stone pillar. He did not use much strength, and the blade was blocked by a layer of invisible runic energy on the stone pillar. The runes on the stone pillars inside were more exquisite than the runes on the stone pillars outside. It was not so easy to destroy. Yang Tian used about 50% of his strength in this slash, but judging from the rebound force, even if he used all his strength, it was impossible to directly destroy the talisman array on the stone pillar. Unless he directly used the runic energy to destroy the runic energy. This was too easy for Yang Tian. The strange program did not need Yang Tian to do anything. It controlled countless runic energy particles and flew around the stone pillar, and it had already calculated the way to crack it. Yang Tian inserted the blade into the gap between the stone slabs under his feet and raised his hands. In a moment, bursts of runic energy came out from his hands. Yang Tian did not use the blade and immediately slapped the stone pillar with his palm. The stone pillar protected by the runic energy was naturally indestructible, but without the protective layer of runic energy, it was like sand. Boom! When Yang Tian slapped the stone pillar with his palm, there was a loud noise. The place where he slapped the stone pillar immediately cracked, and then there was a creaking sound. This was the sound of the stone pillar being destroyed. Yang Tian did not care if the hall would collapse without the support of the stone pillar. He immediately pulled out the blade and slashed at a spirit that he had shaken out of the stone pillar. The blade aura immediately covered the spirit, and it was pulled into the blade by 15. After absorbing a total of 4 spirits, 15 seemed to be more cheerful. Yang Tian, who was holding it, could clearly feel it. Although it had absorbed 4 powerful spirits, 15 was not satisfied. It still conveyed its desire to absorb more spirits to Yang Tian. He did not know how long this blade had been hungry. Chapter 783. Tomorrow's Third Watch. One by one, the pillars were destroyed by Yang Tian, and one by one, the spirits were shaken out of the pillars by Yang Tian. After absorbing more than a dozen powerful spirits, 15 was finally satisfied, and the blade let out a joyful hum. Although Kuang Xing was the temple master of the Everlasting Temple and knew about this special temple, it was his first time here. In reality, the temple was very spacious. It was at least 1,000 times bigger than it looked from the outside. Due to the difference in the flow of time, Kuang Xing had arrived less than 3 minutes later than Yang Tian, but several hours had passed inside. When the blade in Yang Tian's hand had absorbed enough spirits and let out a satisfied hum, Kuang Xing discovered it. Kuang Xing already hated Yang Tian to the core. As soon as he saw Yang Tian, his eyes widened, and there was a fierce glint in his eyes. If it wasn't for Yang Tian's sudden appearance in the temple and messing it up, he would have already started his huge plan. If he succeeded, he wouldn't be like his predecessor, who could only enter this place where spirits could be preserved and wait for a long time after death. Kuang Xing's sudden appearance also surprised Yang Tian. However, he quickly calmed down because Kuang Xing's appearance was within his expectations. Perhaps it was because of 15's influence. Yang Tian was not afraid when he saw Kuang Xing, although he was surprised. Whoosh! Almost instinctively, Yang Tian raised his blade and slashed. His chi rubbed against the space in the temple, and with a sharp hum, he rushed toward Kuang Xing. The sword chi that was released by 15 was more condensed than all the sword chis that Yang Tian had released before. Facing Yang Tian's attack, Kuang Xing did not dodge. He stood there, raised his hand, and grabbed at the crescent-shaped red sword chi. There was a muffled sound. This powerful sword chi was caught by Kuang Xing's hand. Kuang Xing shook his wrist, and the sword chi was dissolved. However, a pained expression suddenly appeared on Kuang Xing's face. A kind of energy that made him feel extremely uncomfortable actually seeped into his skin, through his palm, wanting to spread throughout his entire body. This was a special kind of energy. It wouldn't harm a person's body, but it would destroy the spirit that existed in the body. It could be said that in that instant, Kuang Xing's pain came from his soul. This special energy could actually ignore the physical body and injure the soul. Seeing the painful expression on Kuang Xing's face, Yang Tian was also surprised. He could see that although Kuang Xing was not injured, the saber energy was able to cause him pain. In fact, when Yang Tian released this saber aura, he clearly felt that there was some special energy in the saber aura. This kind of energy should have come from the blade. There was also an energy space in the blade, which was also the hallmark of a divine weapon, because it was precisely this kind of space that allowed weapons to be invincible and produce extremely strong destructive power. However, in order to use such a weapon, a large amount of energy was required. If this saber was given to a cultivator below the destiny comprehension realm, it could only be used as an ordinary weapon and would not be able to release saber energy. Seeing the expression on Kuang Xing's face, Yang Tian knew that the other party would not give him another chance. As expected, Kuang Xing's body flashed and disappeared from his original spot. Compared to Bai Xingxuan's speed, Kuang Xing was even faster. Almost at the same time that Kuang Xing moved, Yang Tian moved as well. He knew that he couldn't give Kuang Xing a chance to get close. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to use his life-saving trump card. As expected, just as Yang Tian left his original spot, Kuang Xing appeared. Kuang Xing's speed was so fast that it was comparable to Yang Tian's thoughts. At the Heavens Wander realm, Kuang Xing's mind was extremely strong. He could clearly feel all the subtle energy fluctuations in the surroundings. After missing his attack, Kuang Xing instinctively chased after the energy traces produced by Yang Tian's movement. When facing an opponent that was stronger than oneself, in order to win, one must not allow the opponent to control the rhythm of the battle. Otherwise, one's defeat would be certain. After flashing away from his original spot, Yang Tian did not stop. He moved again and hid behind a thick stone pillar. What was advantageous to Yang Tian was that there were countless thick stone pillars in this space. These stone pillars were all protected by a talisman array and could withstand a full-powered attack from Yang Tian. Yang Tian could use them as cover. Boom! Just as Yang Tian hid behind the stone pillar and flashed away, the closest stone pillar to him was shattered by Kuang Xing's palm with a thunderous sound. Not only did that palm strike shatter the stone pillar, but it also created a chaotic flow of space in a small area. A spiritual body that was hiding in this stone pillar was swept into the flow of space and disappeared in an instant. Stop! Suddenly, a spiritual body appeared in a stone pillar next to him and shouted at Kuang Xing. However, Kuang Xing ignored him and continued to attack the place where Yang Tian was. This spiritual body was a middle-aged man. When he was alive, it was unknown how many generations of temple masters he was. Seeing that Kuang Xing was ignoring him, this middle-aged man's spiritual body had a self-deprecating smile on his face. Then, he automatically threw himself into a small area of space that was still fluctuating and disappeared. Yang Tian continued to move as Kuang Xing continued to shatter the stone pillars one by one. As the stone pillars were shattered one by one, the entire space began to produce chaotic rune energy fluctuations. This was a sign that the talisman array was about to be destroyed. At this time, of course, Kuang Xing also noticed this because some stones kept falling from the roof of the temple. From the looks of it, due to the reduction of stone pillars, the roof of the temple had already cracked. If it weren't for the existence of these stone pillars and his spiritual power that allowed Yang Tian to know Kuang Xing's movements in advance, and the fact that Kuang Xing was chasing after Yang Tian would have been caught by Kuang Xing a long time ago. The temple was about to be destroyed, and when that time comes, Yang Tian would have nowhere to hide. As he continued to chase after Yang Tian, Kuang Xing could already feel that the time distance between him and Yang Tian was getting shorter and shorter, and Yang Tian's speed was also decreasing. Based on this, Kuang Xing thought that Yang Tian's power was being depleted at an extremely fast rate. Of course, Yang Tian was aware of this, but it was different from Kuang Xing's expectations. It wasn't that he didn't have enough power, but that he was preparing to do something. If he succeeded, although he couldn't kill Kuang Xing, he could temporarily trap Kuang Xing. If Kuang Xing understood Yang Tian's thoughts, he would realize that Yang Tian's actions had a pattern. Boom! There was another loud bang. Kuang Xing shattered another stone pillar with his palm. Next, the entire temple began to tremble, and the rune energy was in complete chaos. In order to not dissipate, the spiritual bodies that were originally floating in this space could only escape into the stone pillars that were still intact. The stone pillars were their last barrier, and could temporarily preserve their spiritual bodies. Chapter 784. Rumble. There was an earth-shattering explosion. Due to the large number of stone pillars in the hall being destroyed, the talisman arrays in the hall were also almost destroyed. The talisman arrays of the temple collapsed, and the roof of the temple shattered and fell down. At this moment, Kuang Xing could not help but slow down. Yang Tian had been waiting for this moment. With a thought, a black hole suddenly appeared in the 8 places where Yang Tian had been. At the same time, 4 black holes appeared at the top of the temple. 12 black holes surrounded Kuang Xing, and Kuang Xing was also in the middle of the 12 black holes. This was also the number of black holes that Yang Tian could release at one time. Through the precise calculation of the strange program, the positions of the 12 black holes were arranged extremely precisely, and the forces produced by them acted on each other to form a special force field. As soon as the black holes appeared, Yang Tian's eyes widened and he shouted. At the same time, the 12 black holes rapidly expanded and rotated at the maximum speed. Yang Tian's timing was just right, the moment when the roof of the temple fell and Kuang Xing stopped moving. When the 12 black holes spun rapidly, the force produced was incomparably huge. Countless rubble of the temple were swept up by the force field and instantly shattered into elementary particles. Kuang Xing was in the middle of the force field produced by the 12 black holes. When the temple fell, countless rubble suddenly appeared in front of him, and then it spun rapidly around him. Not only did it block his vision, but it also made it impossible for him to detect Yang Tian's aura. The sudden appearance of this kind of situation made Kuang Xing involuntarily stunned. Then, he was trapped by a powerful force field, and his body was pulled in all directions. Kuang Xing was shocked and immediately used the powerful energy in his body to resist this strange force. After the roof of the temple collapsed, a large hole appeared, and bright light shone down from above. Yang Tian looked up and saw that the light was actually a rotating spatial entrance that looked like a cloud of gas. Without guessing, Yang Tian knew that this must be the entrance to the Everlasting Temple's treasury. He did not expect that to enter the treasury of the Everlasting Temple, he would have to destroy this temple first. Of course, this was an explosive method. As the Hall Master of the Limitless Divine Palace, he naturally had other ways to enter and exit. Kuang Xing gritted his teeth and raised his head. The light became brighter, and Yang Tian's blurry figure appeared in his eyes. He could not let Yang Tian enter the treasury. Kuang Xing struggled hard. At the same time, a powerful force gushed out from his body, causing his purple robe, which was made of special materials, to swell up. At this time, Kuang Xing looked like a big purple ball. Yang Tian could feel Kuang Xing's struggle, but he had already used all his strength. He could not increase the power of the black hole chain. To be honest, with his destiny perception realm cultivation, it was already very impressive for him to trap a soul travel realm expert. The talisman arrays in the hall were gone. Qing Wu Xingyang and Bai Xingxuan could see Yang Tian, and the trapped Kuang Xing Chen Wu Xingyang widened his eyes as he looked at Yang Tian. His heart was filled with shock. This was the first time in the history of this world that a Destiny Comprehension Realm cultivator had trapped a Soul Travel Realm cultivator, right? Such a thing must be recorded. Thus, Qing Wu Xingyang immediately used the recorder he obtained from the machine race to record this scene. As for Bai Xingxuan, she looked at the ruined temple, her eyes clear and bright. At this moment, only she knew that some strange memories had suddenly appeared in her mind. The scenes in these memories were incomparably real to her, as if she had experienced them herself. No, it was not as if, but as if she had experienced them in the past. Bai Xingxuan, I like you. Bai Xingxuan saw the very young Kuang Xing appear in front of her and confess to her. At that time, Kuang Xing was just an ordinary temple disciple, and his cultivation realm was only at the peak of the illusion realm. Bai Xingxuan was already a destiny perception realm expert. Back then, Bai Xingxuan had looked down on Kuang Xing, because her lifelong goal was to explore the Sea of Stars, the legendary and mysterious place of exploration. In the face of Kuang Xing's confession, Bai Xingxuan did not laugh at him, but instead calmly stated her reasons. In the face of Bai Xingxuan's rejection, Kuang Xing gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. One day I will make you say yes. With that, Kuang Xing strode away. At that time, Bai Xingxuan didn't care about this at all. Because of her excellence, the number of men pursuing her was more than the number of people in a clan. Time flew, and thousands of years passed in the blink of an eye. Bai Xingxuan came to Ludi. When she finally charged into the Sea of Stars as she wished, she discovered that the Sea of Stars really was an extremely dangerous place. Even as a Soul's Wander realm cultivator, it was very difficult for her to resist the pressure from the surrounding space. Although the Sea of Stars was dangerous, there was also a paradise for living creatures to live in. Just like the small island in the lake of Guangxing. With such hope, Bai Xingxuan, who had lost her way in the Sea of Stars, tried her best to fly forward. Finally, one day, she couldn't hold on any longer and closed her eyes. At that time, she was very regretful. She shouldn't have been so impatient and rushed into the Sea of Stars as soon as she entered the Soul Travel realm. However, it was too late for regrets. She thought she would die, but when she woke up, she discovered that she'd been saved. The person who saved her was naturally Kuang Xing. In order to save her, Kuang Xing had taken out the god's corpse's heart that had been preserved in the boundless temple and replaced it with his own. The remnant god's blood in the god's heart flowed throughout Kuang Xing's body, allowing him to survive in the Sea of Stars for a short time. At that time, Kuang Xing had indeed moved Bai Xingxuan. She couldn't help but think that it was a very happy thing to be accompanied by a man who loved her so much. But later, because of the god's blood, Kuang Xing's temperament changed drastically. Not only did he kill all of her siblings, but he also forced her father, Palace Master Gong Hong, to abdicate prematurely. This wasn't Bai Xingxuan's fault, because it had nothing to do with her. However, in order to keep her by his side, Kuang Xing used a special life talisman formation to seal away part of her memories. Kuang Xing believed that Bai Xingxuan was a restless woman who would break free from his control once her cultivation recovered. The current Kuang Xing had been completely changed under the influence of the god's blood. He was more like a god who looked down on all things. Whatever he set his eyes on, he had to firmly grasp it in his hands. Perhaps the Kuang Xing of the past no longer existed. The current Kuang Xing was actually the consciousness of the god's corpse that had awakened in his body. Chapter 785. These were undoubtedly Bai Xingxuan's deepest memories. When he saw Yang Tian take to the air and head for the entrance to the treasury, Bai Xingxuan threw the red hexagonal token in his hand at Yang Tian. Whoosh! Yang Tian heard the whistling sound behind him. The spiritual power surrounding him told him that it was the key that Bai Xingxuan had thrown at him. Yang Tian grabbed the red hexagonal token, puzzled as to why Bai Xingxuan would do such a thing. Seeing that Bai Xingxuan had gone against his will and handed the key to the treasury to Yang Tian, Kuang Xing couldn't help but roar like a wild beast. Due to his extreme anger, Kuang Xing unleashed his greatest power. The power formed by the 12 black holes showed signs of not being able to trap Kuang Xing. Yang Tian, who was in the air, gritted his teeth. With a thought, he sped up the rotation of the black hole chains in the energy world. In fact, the black hole chains had already reached their maximum speed and could not be sped up any further. However, in a moment of desperation, Yang Tian persisted, and the black hole chains sped up by another 10%. Don't underestimate this 10%. After the interaction of the 12 black holes, the power reflected was 10 times, or even dozens of times more. Of course, the energy consumed was also increasing at the same rate. It was obvious that the origin power planets around the black hole chains, be it planets or stars, were all affected by the powerful force field of the black hole chains. They flew rapidly toward the chains and disintegrated in the process, turning into energy and being absorbed by the black hole chains. Kuang Xing, who was just about to break free, was once again trapped by the sudden increase in power. Not to mention breaking free to stop Yang Tian, it was very difficult for him to even move. At this moment, Kuang Xing was very surprised. Yang Tian was only a destiny enlightenment cultivator, and yet he could use such a method to trap him. Then, what would happen after Yang Tian reached the 100 change realm and the mental wander realm? Wouldn't Yang Tian, who had such a method, be able to easily defeat him? What kind of method was this? No matter how hard Kuang Xing tried, he could not remember how Yang Tian managed to cultivate such a powerful attack. But he understood that using such a technique would definitely exhaust a huge amount of energy. No wonder Yang Tian wanted to enter the treasury. If Yang Tian succeeded, not only would the infinite divine palace lose their foundation, Yang Tian would also become even stronger. At this thought, Kuang Xing's eyes suddenly turned blood-red. A beam of blood-red light shot out from the top of his head. There was only one strand of red light, and when combined, it was not even as big as a finger. However, it suddenly contained the force field of 12 black holes and rushed towards Yang Tian. Bai Xingxuan's heart skipped a beat upon seeing the red light. She did not expect that in order to stop Yang Tian, Kuang Xing would actually use his life source attack. The so-called life bond attack was something only 100 transformation realm cultivators could use. Only after reaching this realm could one gather their thoughts together, and after charging out of the body, they could still exist outside for a short period of time. The life bond attack did not target the opponent's body, but their spiritual body. If such thoughts invaded the body, the violent intent would directly rush into the world of energy. This would not only damage the opponent's spiritual body, but also cut off the opponent's control over the world of energy. In a battle between high-level cultivators, this was a last resort, because it would cause both sides to suffer great losses. Of course, the spiritual body of the attacked person would be damaged, but the spiritual body of the cultivator who used the life bond attack would also be greatly affected, and would need to cultivate for a very long time to recover. In the face of Kuang Xing's life bond attack, Yang Tian could not stop it, nor could he stop it in time. Because at this moment, the black hole chain in his body was showing signs of going out of control. The 12 black holes that formed the chain suddenly sped up under Yang Tian's will. The black hole chain erupted with energy and trapped Kuang Xing again, but the chain's spinning speed was still increasing. This was the reason why Yang Tian had not been willing to use the black hole chain to its maximum speed. The black hole chain was a double-edged sword. If he did not control it well, even he would be injured. If he did not control the rotation speed of the 12 black holes now, his world of energy would definitely be destroyed. Yang Tian could not imagine the consequences of that. He estimated that losing his world of energy and becoming an ordinary person would be the least of it. In the worst case, the black hole chain would swallow his body and even appear in this world. When Kuang Xing attacked Yang Tian had already transferred all his attention to his world of energy and focused on controlling the rotation speed of the black holes. His efforts were effective. The black hole's rotation speed gradually slowed down, and the rate of energy consumption also slowed down. This was a critical moment. Yang Tian closed his eyes, and his body stopped at the entrance of the treasury. At this time, if he was injured by Kuang Xing's life-bond attack, Yang Tian would be in danger. However, in the face of Kuang Xing's life-bond attack, not only was Yang Tian unable to counterattack, but he also did not even notice it. The blood light was very fast. When it approached Yang Tian and was about to rush into Yang Tian's body, a green light blocked the blood-red light. It was the little blue dragon. At this critical moment, the little blue dragon used its body to block the fatal blow for Yang Tian. Yang Tian had the power of the mind, so he was not afraid of this kind of mental attack. If Yang Tian had not transferred all his attention to his world of energy, with his powerful mind power, Kuang Xing's life-bond attack would not have been able to break through his mental defense. The way to counter a life-bond attack was through mind power. The little blue dragon also had the power of the mind. When Kuang Xing's powerful mind entered the little blue dragon's body, before it could explode and cause damage to the little blue dragon, the mind was trapped by the little blue dragon's mind power, cutting off its connection with Kuang Xing. Without the connection, the mind naturally dissipated. Kuang Xing was shocked when he realized that his own life-bond attack had been neutralized by the little blue dragon. He did not understand how such a powerful life-bond attack could be neutralized by a dragon. This was the best time to attack Yang Tian. Kuang Xing could see that in order to trap him, Yang Tian used a powerful method that could easily cause him to lose control. This was the time when Yang Tian was in trouble. As long as his life-bond attack could enter Yang Tian's body, it would cause more damage than usual. With a thought, dozens of red lights shot out from the top of Kuang Xing's head. A cultivator in the 100 transformation realm could use their life-bond attack dozens of times. A cultivator in the soul travel realm had a stronger soul body, so the will that used the soul body as the foundation was naturally stronger. Kuang Xing used all the willpower he could muster in one go for a final gamble. If he succeeded, Yang Tian would be seriously injured even if he didn't die, and the trouble would be resolved. If he failed, his soul body would be damaged, and his will would become weak, greatly affecting his control of energy. If Yang Tian could continue like this, he would also be trapped by Yang Tian. Chapter 786. In the face of Kuang Xing's dozens of natal attacks, the little blue dragon's eyes showed a sneer. When it dissolved the energy that entered its body, the little blue dragon already understood what kind of energy Kuang Xing was trying to use to attack Yang Tian. It was willpower. For other cultivators, this kind of powerful willpower attack was almost fatal. A person's consciousness could not exist for long in another life form. As the saying goes, flesh gives birth to spirit, and spirit nourishes flesh. But for cultivators with mind power, this kind of attack was like scratching an itch. It posed no threat at all. This was because mind power and willpower came from the same root. They were very similar types of energy. But willpower was still a bit lacking compared to mind power. After dissolving Kuang Xing's natal attack, the little blue dragon immediately released its mind power and surrounded itself and Yang Tian. If mind power had a physical form, then at this moment it and Yang Tian would be like being in a bubble. Kuang Xing's natal attack, no matter which direction it came from, had to break through the little blue dragon's mind power defense. Although it looked down on Kuang Xing's natal attack, the little blue dragon did not underestimate it. At this moment, it released its most powerful mind power. This time, Kuang Xing's natal attack was different from before. Previously, for the sake of surprise, his natal attack went straight for Yang Tian. But this time, dozens of blood-red lights were like flying fireflies, coming from different angles. But these blood-red lights were still a few meters away from Yang Tian and the little blue dragon when they encountered a layer of strange energy. As soon as they encountered this invisible energy, the blood-red lights were like ice meeting fire. They immediately dissipated and became much weaker. Kuang Xing frowned. With a thought, the dozens of blood-red lights instantly merged together and gathered into a ball. It flew a few rounds around the mind power released by the little blue dragon, and then charged head-on. Poof! In the minds of the little blue dragon and Kuang Xing, the sound of two types of energy colliding rang out at the same time. The condensed blood-red light actually pierced through the little blue dragon's mind power defense. After all, Kuang Xing was a soul travel realm powerhouse. Using his spirit body, which was the price of injuring his soul, to launch an attack, was not as easy as the little blue dragon imagined. However, although it broke through the little blue dragon's mind power, the remaining blood-red light had become very weak. It had lost at least 50% of its power. Furthermore, Kuang Xing had lost contact with the blood light, because it had charged into the little azure dragon's mental defense. Without Kuang Xing's control, the blood light was like a headless fly. Seizing the opportunity, the little azure dragon swallowed it whole. Kuang Xing's face turned pale as the little azure dragon dissolved his attack once again. His resistance to the black hole's binding energy also weakened a lot. Kuang Xing's sudden weakness was beneficial to Yang Tian at this time. Because, when Yang Tian was controlling the black hole chain, he was worried that after the 12 black holes' rotation speed decreased, it would weaken the energy binding Kuang Xing, allowing Kuang Xing to escape. If Kuang Xing escaped, he would only need a moment to kill him. Therefore, when Kuang Xing used his life source attack on him and was twice neutralized by the little blue dragon, Yang Tian had been trying hard to maintain the speed of the 12 black holes that formed the black hole chain. He could not let them rotate any faster, but he could not let them rotate any slower. This process was actually very short, but whether it was Yang Tian or Kuang Xing, it was actually an extremely long process. The two were competing on the level of consciousness, and this process was very fast. It made Yang Tian feel like he had experienced a very long time. When Kuang Xing's struggling weakened, Yang Tian also let out a sigh of relief. He could finally slow down the rotation speed of the 12 black holes. As the rotation speed of the black holes decreased, the black hole chain also calmed down. Yang Tian could finally shift most of his consciousness out of the energy world. At this time, Kuang Xing of course also knew that the energy binding him had obviously weakened. However, he had also weakened and could no longer break free of the energy binding him. At this time, Kuang Xing had no choice but to look at Bai Xingxuan for help. At this time, if Bai Xingxuan attacked Yang Tian, he would be able to break free immediately. However, to his disappointment and heartache, Bai Xingxuan looked at him with a very indifferent gaze. Kuang Xing's heartache was because he did like Bai Xingxuan. However, what he did not know was that Bai Xingxuan had agreed to accompany him out of gratitude, and not out of any romantic feelings. These two feelings were completely different. Love could make a man and a woman blind. They only had eyes for each other and could give everything for each other. However, feelings of gratitude dissipated too easily. Bai Xingxuan was not an ungrateful person. As long as Yang Tian did not harm Kuang Xing's life, under such circumstances, she would not attack Yang Tian. Because she had been trapped for so many years, she also hoped to regain her freedom. Especially after recovering some of her memories, this desire was even stronger. In fact, it was really impossible for Yang Tian to kill Kuang Xing at this time, unless he wanted to die together with Kuang Xing. Kuang Xing was like a diamond, and his black hole power was like a rope. The rope could bind the diamond stone and prevent it from moving, but it was impossible to use the rope to destroy it. Now, Yang Tian could finally focus on opening the treasury. The talisman array that formed the treasury's entrance was not a complicated array. It was not as exquisite as the talisman array that maintained the existence of the spirit body. A few seconds after the entrance appeared, the strange program calculated a way to crack it based on the energy it emitted. In less than half a minute, Yang Tian could enter smoothly even if he did not get the key in by Xingxuan's hands. However, now that he had the red hexagonal token that Bai Xingxuan had given him, it was not so troublesome. Yang Tian held the token in his hand and exerted a little force. A round button in his palm sank down. Immediately, the talisman array on the token was activated. The runic energy it emitted enveloped Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. Qing Wu Xingyang was very clever. He immediately flew over, and Yang Tian did not stop him. Soon, the entrance produced a strong suction force that sucked Yang Tian, the little blue dragon, and Qing Wu Xingyang in. When Yang Tian and the others disappeared, the entrance flashed and closed. Yang Tian still chose to enter the largest and most mysterious warehouse of the Lookout Temple. He would immediately be able to obtain a large amount of energy and replenish his energy. If Yang Tian and the rest had a large enough storage space, they could even move everything inside. Thinking of this, Kuang Xing could not help but roar again. At this time, the energy that trapped him also disappeared because of Yang Tian's departure. Whoosh! There was a whistling sound. Bai Xingxuan's neck was grabbed by Kuang Xing. In her eyes, Kuang Xing's face, which had become distorted due to extreme anger, appeared. Chapter 787. Tomorrow at 3:00 p.m., Bai Xingxuan, who was being held by Kuo Xing by the neck, looked at Kuo Xing calmly. Kuo Xing looked at Bai Xingxuan's face coldly and gritted his teeth. In the end, he let go of Bai Xingxuan, turned around and said calmly, "Leave." Bai Xingxuan looked at Kuo Xing's back and shook her head. "It's not over yet. I want to see the result." Kuo Xing snorted coldly and walked toward the temple that had been turned into ruins. Boom! Standing in the middle of the temple, Kuo Xing's body trembled. A powerful force was unleashed from Kuo Xing's body, forming a powerful airflow outside his body. With a loud bang, the heavy rocks and the fallen pillars were all swept away by the powerful airflow and were sent flying into the distance. Kuo Xing's surroundings were emptied, revealing the red ground. Originally, the ground was covered with thick bluestone slabs, but now the slabs were all sent flying by Kuo Xing. The red ground was actually some transparent rocks that looked like jade. If one looked inside, they would see countless runes inside. Kuo Xing knelt down with a frown and pressed his hand on the ground, releasing a powerful energy. Soon, the red rock lit up like a light bulb. The runes inside seemed to have come alive and kept on moving. After the hidden rune array was activated, the portal above opened again. Seeing this, Bai Xingxuan frowned again. She did not expect that the everlasting temple would have such a rune array hidden. She thought that the red hexagonal token in her hand was the only key to the treasury. Kuo Xing had told her the same thing. She did not expect that Kuo Xing would also hide this from her. While she did not really like Kuo Xing, Bai Xingxuan still felt uncomfortable. She also knew that this was a normal psychological reaction. After the portal appeared again, Kuo Xing smiled coldly and turned into a purple light as he rushed into the portal and disappeared in a flash. After Kuo Xing entered, the portal closed again as if it had never appeared. The moment he entered the treasury, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. What appeared in front of Yang Tian was a huge cave. The place where he appeared was actually a teleportation array platform. At this moment, Yang Tian suddenly understood. Legends were, after all, just legends. The treasury of the limitless divine palace was actually built in a sealed place. It was not a space formed by a talisman array. Although the array glyphs were exquisite in terms of stability, they could not be compared to real objects. Being in this space, Yang Tian was unable to determine where he was on the continent for the time being. So that's how it is. Looking at the huge space before him, Chen Wuxingyang couldn't help but sigh. This space, which seemed to be an underground cave, was completely man-made. However, it was very simple and crude. On the walls of the cave there were still scratches made by huge tools. Yang Tian and the others had imagined that there would be countless louse crystals, pills, and all sorts of other cultivation materials, but none of them appeared before their eyes. When Yang Tian and Chen Wuxingyang walked down from the teleportation platform, the platform behind them lit up again and activated the teleportation. Just as the two of them turned around, they saw Kuang Xing's figure. At that moment, Yang Tian did not hesitate and raised his saber, slashing towards Kuang Xing, who had yet to complete his teleportation. There was a muffled sound. As soon as Kuang Xing appeared, before he could defend himself, he was sent flying by Yang Tian from the platform. Kuang Xing had already expected such a situation when he entered the treasury. He knew that if Yang Tian didn't use the 12 black spheres, it would be impossible to hurt him. His appearance should be very sudden for Yang Tian. The real situation was similar to what Kuang Xing had expected. His powerful body was not hurt by Yang Tian's blade aura. However, Kuang Xing did not expect Yang Tian's blade aura to be very different from before. 15 in Yang Tian's hand, after absorbing enough souls, had completely awakened. In the space of the blade, the absorbed souls were placed in a special talisman array, making shrill screams. They were suffering, and the degree of discomfort was dozens of times more painful than being burned by fire. However, under such pain they could not die. Under such circumstances, each soul produced a strong resentment, and through the special talisman array in the blade, it was transformed into a special kind of energy. 15 was now a soul blade, the Soul Slayer blade. When Yang Tian held the blade and poured power into it, he naturally felt everything that was happening in the blade. He had to sigh. The person who made this blade was a genius. Not only was she proficient in forging, but she was also proficient in runes. She was also a very vicious person. 15 could release such special damage. No wonder it could kill the divine dragon. The blade aura it released was not to hurt the opponent's body, but the soul. The soul was the weakest part of a living body, and at the same time, it was extremely important. If the human body was viewed as a sophisticated computer, the human body would be able to function as a computer. The body was the hardware, and the soul was undoubtedly the software in the computer. If the software in the computer was deleted, even the most sophisticated computer would not be able to run it. Because he used his original attack, Kuang Xing's soul was already weak. Now that he was hit by Yang Tian's special blade aura, his physical body was not injured, but his soul was severely injured. Kuang Xing, who was sent flying, endured the pain from his soul, shook his head, and looked at Yang Tian with incomparable anger. "Let's go." Although Kuang Xing's internal energy was in chaos, Yang Tian still turned around, pulled Chen Wuxingyang, and ran. Even if Kuang Xing's combat power was only half of what it was before, it was not something that he and the little blue dragon could defeat together. As for the black hole chain, this thing was very powerful, and there was no problem in trapping Kuang Xing again. However, the amount of energy it consumed was simply too great. In fact, Yang Tian was also very weak now. If he used the black hole chain again, there would only be one result, and that was, the energy world would be destroyed by the black hole chain. Looking at Yang Tian running away, Kuang Xing did not immediately chase after him. Instead, he took out a white pill from his storage bracelet, crushed it, and put it into his mouth. A drop of cool liquid flowed down Kuang Xing's throat, and it instantly refreshed Kuang Xing immediately. He began to adjust the chaotic energy in his body due to the damage to his soul. This process took Kuang Xing at least 10 minutes. By the time he was done, Yang Tian was long gone. Boom! There was a loud noise. It was Kuang Xing who destroyed the teleportation platform. As the most powerful cultivator in the world, his combat power was hundreds of times stronger than Yang Tian. Yet, he had been defeated by Yang Tian several times. Without a doubt, it meant that Yang Tian was his real nemesis. In the life of a cultivator, there would always be people like this. If they did not get rid of them, then the ending would be very tragic. Kuang Xing destroyed the way out because he wanted to make sure that Yang Tian would never be able to leave this place. If the worst came to the worst, he would take Yang Tian down with him. Chapter 788. 3 chapters in 1. Seeing that Kuo Xing didn't chase after them, Yang Tian and Qing Wu Xingyang couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. In this rough space there were rocks everywhere. The further they went, the more rocks there were and the bigger they got. This situation made Yang Tian wonder if this was the treasury of the everlasting temple. But when he thought of Kuo Xing chasing after them with no regard for his life, he was relieved. He knew that it wasn't that easy to enter the treasury of the everlasting temple. For Yang Tian and Qing Wu Xingyang, there wasn't much time. If Kuo Xing didn't chase after them, they could still search for him calmly. But with Kuo Xing behind them, Yang Tian and Qing Wu Xingyang felt a sense of danger. After walking through the mountain-sized rocks for a while, Yang Tian set up an aura-concealing glyph array with the help of a strange program. This way, even if Kuo Xing passed by not far away, he wouldn't find their hiding place. Yang Tian stopped at this time to replenish his energy. In the battle with Bai Xingxuan, Yang Tian had consumed a lot of energy. Later, when he trapped Kuo Xing, he used even more energy. Although the battle was extremely short, Yang Tian's energy was already a little low. Now, even if Kuo Xing stood in front of him and obediently let him use the black hole chain to bind him, Yang Tian wouldn't be able to do it. Before coming to the everlasting temple, Yang Tian didn't have much stock left. Fortunately, he used the 9-colored palace token to swindle a lot of things from the guest department in the temple. Otherwise, Yang Tian would be in danger of running out of food. To put it bluntly, the previous battle between cultivators was also a competition of energy replenishment resources. 100,000 Destiny Comprehension Realm Pills, 100 million Standard Volume Laos Crystals. These things could be used to replenish energy. Yang Tian had the black hole chain swallow a third of them all at once. When he saw Yang Tian use so many things at once to replenish his energy, Qing Wu Xingyang couldn't help but secretly click his tongue. With so many lice crystals and pills, he would be able to steadily cultivate to the Destiny Enlightenment realm. Seeing Yang Tian's hungry appearance, Qing Wu Xingyang guessed that the battle between Yang Tian and Kuang Xing just now wouldn't have consumed so much energy, right? Qing Wu Xingyang's guess was right. During the battle with Kuang Xing, Yang Tian had used up almost all the energy stored in the original realm. The energy consumed was about the same as the energy extracted from the pills and lice crystals that Yang Tian had swallowed with the black hole. One had to know that the battle between Yang Tian and Kuang Xing was separated by an entire realm. Under normal circumstances, a difference of 1 rank would result in a one-sided battle, but Yang Tian and Kuang Xing were 2 ranks away from Kuang Xing. Among the cultivators, he was probably the only one who could do this because his energy world was extremely vast. Perhaps it was because of its size that black holes had appeared in his energy world, and because of his ingenious ideas, he had created a chain of black holes. If it had been any other Destiny Enlightenment realm cultivator, it would have been very difficult for them to make the chain of black holes operate, let alone form a black hole in their energy world. Also, if any other Destiny Enlightenment realm cultivator absorbed so much energy at once, their energy world would probably explode. In Chen Wuxingyang's eyes, Yang Tian had already been equated with a monster. He originally thought that Yang Tian would take a long time to recuperate, but after Yang Tian finished absorbing the energy fluctuations emitted from his body stabilized within a few dozen breaths. With enough energy, Yang Tian's confidence increased. After he finished recuperating, Yang Tian's eyes were filled with confidence and a trace of madness. Through the previous battle with Quang Xing, Yang Tian realized that he could actually kill Quang Xing by relying on the black hole chain. The current situation was that if he wanted to smoothly find what he needed, he had to get rid of Quang Xing. However, this was simply impossible. This was Quang Xing's territory. As long as he waited at the entrance for him, it would be fine. Unless he no longer coveted the limitless temple's countless cultivation resources and thought of a way to leave. In any case, the temple's talisman array had been changed. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. Unless someone had the ability to restore the talisman array in a short period of time. Quang Xing naturally recognized this point. Therefore, he wanted to protect the limitless temple's treasury. With the treasury, the limitless temple's foundation would remain. If it was destroyed, he could just build another one. Now that things had developed to this point, the grudge between Yang Tian and Quang Xing was no longer a simple personal grudge. It was related to the future of both of them, and it could no longer be described as a fight to the death. Therefore, if there was a chance, why not kill Quang Xing? Moreover, it wasn't impossible. Previously, when he faced Quang Xing, Yang Tian only wanted to escape because of Quang Xing's strength. He wanted to wait until he was as strong as Quang Xing before finding trouble with him. However, at this time, Yang Tian's thoughts changed. Because, in addition to the black hole chain, Yang Tian also had 15, a blade that could directly hurt people's souls. If he could trap Quang Xing, then use this blade to attack him a few times in Yang Tian's mind, he began to calculate the process of how to kill Quang Xing. After some thinking, with the help of the strange program, the plan in Yang Tian's mind gradually perfected. After thinking about it, Yang Tian stared straight at Chen Wuxingyang. "You. What are you doing?" Chen Wuxingyang was scared by Yang Tian's stare and stammered nervously. Yang Tian laughed and said, "Let's wait a moment and kill Quang Xing," Yang Tian said, waving his palm vertically and making a chopping motion. Kill Quang Xing. He really dared to think about it? Chen Wuxingyang looked at the excited Yang Tian and his eyes widened. Yang Tian ignored the shocked Chen Wuxingyang and whispered his plan. "You want me to attract him?" After Yang Tian finished speaking, Chen Wuxingyang pointed at himself and said in horror. In Yang Tian's plan, he wanted Chen Wuxingyang to appear and attract Quang Xing to his designated location. This process was very important. Yang Tian, the little blue dragon, and Chen Wuxingyang, 2 people and 1 dragon, only Chen Wuxingyang could do it. If Yang Tian and the little blue dragon appeared, Quang Xing would immediately attack. How about it, do you agree? Looking at Chen Wuxingyang's hesitation, Yang Tian asked with a sneer. Seeing Yang Tian staring at his forehead, Chen Wuxingyang suddenly came to a realization. Now, Yang Tian's restriction on his body had not been lifted. If he did not agree to Yang Tian, he was afraid that he would die a horrible death. However, although there was a threat, Chen Wuxingyang did not resent Yang Tian. The world was like this, the strong controlled the weak. Chen Wuxingyang was a weakling in front of Yang Tian, so naturally he would be controlled by Yang Tian. Moreover, if Yang Tian's plan succeeded and Quang Xing was killed, it would be good for Chen Wuxingyang and Chen Wuxingyang's family. Okay, I promise you. After thinking about it, Chen Wuxingyang could only grit his teeth and agree. Anyway, this time, if Yang Tian was finished, he would also be finished. The punishment of the temple for spies was very harsh. It would definitely be more painful than Yang Tian's death. Xiao Long, go and see. Seeing Chen Wuxingyang agree, Yang Tian turned his head and said to the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon understood Yang Tian's meaning and immediately went to see if Kuang Xing had come. With Yang Tian's current realm, even if he had the black hole chain and 15, it would not be so easy to kill Kuang Xing. Kuang Xing had already suffered a loss before, so he would definitely not be easily trapped by him again. Yang Tian naturally understood this point, so he needed the help of the talisman array. This was also Yang Tian's advantage. After the little blue dragon left, Yang Tian did not immediately take action, but began to observe the surrounding terrain. At this time, the strange program began to calculate and design the talisman array according to the surrounding terrain. After Kuang Xing finished adjusting his breath, he chased for a while and lost track of Yang Tian's aura. The space here was very large. If Yang Tian used the talisman array to hide, it would not be easy to find Yang Tian. At this time, Kuang Xing was not in a hurry, because the teleportation platform to leave this place had been destroyed. This was the only way in and out now. If Yang Tian wanted to open another way out, it would definitely cause a big commotion. However, he could not let Yang Tian have it so easy. Kuang Xing, who was standing on a huge rock, glanced around and smiled coldly. Shortly after, Kuang Xing's figure moved, and he arrived in front of an inconspicuous stone wall. He raised his hand and pressed on a protruding stone on the wall. Crack! There was a soft sound. After pressing the rock, Kuang Xing immediately left the place. Then, he went to another place. In this vast and messy stone cave, there were actually many talisman mechanisms. Once activated, not only would it strengthen the defense of this place, it would also put the intruders in danger. Kuang Xing's movements were very fast. His figure flashed again, and in 10 breaths, more than 10 inconspicuous rocks were pressed down by him. Some of these protruding buttons were on the walls of the cave, some were on the huge rocks, and some were even on the ceiling. While Kuang Xing was doing these things, Yang Tian was thinking about his plan. Not long after the little blue dragon left, the light in the stone cave suddenly dimmed. After noticing this abnormality, Yang Tian looked up and found that a dark green fog had appeared on the ceiling of the cave at some point. The light in this stone cave was released by some glowing crystals on the ceiling. When the green fog appeared, it covered the light emitted by the crystals. If it was white fog, Yang Tian probably would not have paid attention to it. He would have thought that it was water vapor. However, this fog was green, and he knew at a glance that it was not something good. Poison fog. Yang Tian could not help but frown. However, he did not stop his plan. He immediately took out a talisman pen from his storage bracelet and started drawing on a huge rock. In just a few seconds, Yang Tian had carved dozens of runes on it. Of course, it was also with the help of the strange program that he appeared to be so skilled. When Chen Wuxingyang, who was standing at the side, saw this, he could not help but admire Yang Tian again. With just this skill alone, the advanced talisman masters in the temple would not be able to catch up even if they cultivated for thousands of years. Although Chen Wuxingyang was not proficient in runes, he could appreciate it. It was not only because of the speed at which Yang Tian carved the runes, but also because of the size and arrangement of each rune. The thin energy lines that separated from the runes gave people a pleasant feeling. After Yang Tian completed these dozens of runes, a faint rune energy fluctuation appeared. After completing the runes, Yang Tian raised his head to take another look. In this short period of time, the green fog on the ceiling of the cave became thicker and began to press down. The thickening green fog made the light in the cave even dimmer. Yang Tian immediately separated a wisp of his mental power and entered the fog. Through the investigation of his mental power, Yang Tian quickly found out what the green fog was. They were actually tiny insects gathered together. It was not that Yang Tian had never seen these small insects before. When he left the Superstar Academy with Soli and went out to train, he encountered a kind of devouring insect. When the devouring insect was still a larva, it was this big. When it had enough energy and started to grow, it could be so big that it could devour an entire planet. Was this green insect also like the devouring insect? Right now, Yang Tian did not have the time to study these insects. He needed to finish setting up the talisman formation before Kuang Xing appeared. Although things might change and the final result might not be useful, it was better to be prepared than not. Yang Tian sped up. In a short 10 minutes or so, Yang Tian went around an area of about 1,000 square meters and carved dozens of runes on dozens of pieces of gravel. When he was finally done, there were already faint rune energy fluctuations in this area of 1,000 square meters. This kind of subtle energy was comparable to the energy fluctuations caused by the flow of air. Even if a talisman expert like Black Talisman Lord appeared here, it would be difficult for him to discover that he had entered a rune array. After completing the rune array, Yang Tian used his mental power to summon the little blue dragon back and then returned to the place where he was hiding before. The little blue dragon's investigation this time was naturally fruitful because Kuo Xing did not hide his aura, making him like a light in the night. The little blue dragon soon approached less than 100 meters away from Kuo Xing. Because the little blue dragon surrounded itself with its mental power, Kuo Xing did not notice it. Perhaps Kuo Xing had discovered it but deliberately pretended not to notice it. At this moment, Kuo Xing was sitting cross-legged on a flat boulder, motionless, as if he was meditating. Also, Kuo Xing had destroyed the teleportation platform. He's planning to waste time with us. Yang Tian looked up at the green fog above his head and sneered. What's that green thing up there? Chen Wuxingyang also looked up and frowned as he asked. The green insects were as small as the tip of a cow's hair. Naturally, they could not be seen clearly from far away, but Yang Tian could see them clearly through his mental power. The insects were shaped like mosquitoes with sharp mouth. They were still in a state of deep sleep and were curled up. However, it was expected that they would wake up soon. Fortunately, the insects did not react to mental power. Out of curiosity, Yang Tian wanted to use other types of power to test them, but after some thought, he decided not to. Those are all little green bugs, Yang Tian told Chen Wuxingyang what he saw. Yang Tian had never seen such small insects before, so he hoped that Chen Wuxingyang would know more about them. However, Chen Wuxingyang shook his head after hearing that because he did not know. While they were talking, the green fog had become as thick as a black cloud. The light was so dim that one could only see tens of meters away with the naked eye, and they were less than 10 meters above the ground. In order to guard against these small insects, Yang Tian had used his mental power to envelop a 3-meter radius around him. If the green insects suddenly woke up, he would have time to deal with them. At this moment, Kuo Xing, who was sitting on a giant rock with his legs crossed, suddenly opened his eyes. He expressionlessly took out a small green tube that looked like a straw from his storage bracelet, put it to his lips, and blew on it. A strange sound wave was emitted from the small hole at the end of the tube, and it spread out in all directions. As soon as the green insects came into contact with the sound wave energy, they finally woke up. Kuo Xing moved quickly. He only blew on the tube for a moment before he jumped off the giant rock and took out a golden pill from his storage bracelet and consumed it. After a few breaths, Kuo Xing's body emitted a faint fragrance. The awakened green insects initially wanted to attack Kuo Xing, who had released them, but they stayed away when they saw the fragrance coming from Kuo Xing's body. When Kuo Xing looked at the insects that were still flying around him, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart. That was because, in that instant, he realized that those green bugs were actually able to absorb the energy in his body from a distance. It was simply too terrifying. If it was not for the antidote, he would have been in great danger, especially when he had cut off his escape route. The awakened insects began to move freely. Each of them seemed to have been hungry for a long time, and they needed to absorb energy to fill their stomach. When the insects were thirsty, the green lights on their bodies became brighter. Countless of these small insects turned the entire cave into a strange green color. Wherever there were energy waves, they would swarm over and form a small swarm. They looked like will-o'-the-wisps floating in the air. Fortunately, the green insects were not interested in Yang Tian's mental power, so the two of them were safe for the time being. However, if the green insects continued to exist in the cave, it would be troublesome. It was worth noting that Yang Tian used his mental power to protect himself, the little blue dragon, and Chen Wuxingyang, and it consumed energy. The consumption could not be dragged on indefinitely. Kuo-shing released the insects because he would not be attacked by them. Next, as long as Yang Tian could not hold on and made a move, Kuo-shing would be able to sense his location. Yang Tian could not help but feel lucky that he did not spend time studying the insects before this. Instead, he completed the talisman formation as quickly as possible. It was a wise decision. Now the plan could be even more perfect. This might be the best time. Yang Tian patted Chen Wuxingyang's shoulder and said with a smile, "According to what we said just now, take this and crush it when Kuo-shing comes." As Yang Tian spoke, he placed a blue stone in Chen Wuxingyang's hand. But those insects. Chen Wuxingyang smiled bitterly. Yang Tian naturally would not let Chen Wuxingyang die for nothing. He said to the little blue dragon, "Xiao Long, help him. I need to focus on setting up the talisman formation. Whether we can kill Kuo-shing or not, it will depend on our luck." The little blue dragon nodded and jumped onto Chen Wuxingyang's head. Chen Wuxingyang smiled bitterly. Under the protection of the little blue dragon's mental power, he slowly walked out of the range of Yang Tian's mental power field. When he arrived at the place Yang Tian pointed out, Chen Wuxingyang suppressed his nervousness and glanced at the green fog that was constantly floating around. Then, he lifted his foot and crushed a rock under his foot. Then, Kuo-shing flashed away at an extremely fast speed. There was an energy fluctuation, and the green insects nearby swarmed over. Chen Wuxingyang was so scared that he screamed and ran to the side. The green fog formed by the swarm of green insects immediately covered the rock that Chen Wuxingyang had crushed, turning it into powder in an instant. Chen Wuxingyang was really scared when he saw this. Fortunately, he remembered Yang Tian's words and held the green stone tightly in his hand. Sure enough, before he could run a few steps, Kuo-shing suddenly appeared in his sight. Perhaps he thought that he had discovered Yang Tian's position, but Kuo-shing's face was filled with madness. In the green light, he looked extremely demonic, like a devil. When he saw Kuo-shing appear, Chen Wuxingyang immediately crushed the green stone in his hand without hesitation. As soon as the green stone was crushed, 12 black spheres suddenly appeared around him. They were almost exactly the same as the black holes that Yang Tian had released before. Although these 12 black holes were formed by talisman formations, they were still madly absorbing the surrounding energy and sucking in countless green insects. When he realized that it was not Yang Tian and that 12 black holes had appeared around him, Kuo-shing was shocked and wanted to retreat. However, when he realized that the power of the black holes was not as strong as before, he couldn't help but stop. In fact, Kuo-shing had already expected this situation. After being tricked once, he naturally didn't want to be trapped by Yang Tian again. Therefore, when he rushed over, he was ready to retreat at any time. Chen Wuxingyang, who remembered Yang Tian's words, seized the moment when Kuo-shing was confused and turned to escape. When Chen Wuxingyang moved, Kuo-shing also reacted and wanted to chase after Chen Wuxingyang. However, a familiar and powerful force appeared all of a sudden and trapped him again. This time, Chen Wuxingyang finally understood that he had been tricked. The 12 black holes he saw were just a disguise. The purpose was to make him stay for a little while. Any attack or defense needed time to start. Kuo-shing had thought of this before and didn't want to give Yang Tian this opportunity. He didn't expect that he would still fall into Yang Tian's trap. At this time, Kuo-shing couldn't help but admire Yang Tian's scheming. Feeling Kuo-shing's struggle, Yang Tian let out a long sigh in his heart. The most important part of his plan was finally completed. Now, if Kuo-shing didn't have any other means, he could only wait for death. Chapter 789. In order to prevent Kuo-shing from breaking free, Yang Tian made the black hole spin at the fastest speed that he could control. Kuo-shing, who was trapped, raised his head and let out a roar. With this roar, Kuo-shing once again unleashed his most powerful energy. After being trapped by Yang Tian once, Kuo-shing naturally thought about what he would do if he was trapped by Yang Tian again. Boom! There was a loud noise. After Kuo-shing's energy left his body, it was like an explosive under his control, violently released to the surroundings. This was the method that Kuo-shing thought of. He wanted to use this energy explosion to blow away the power that was binding him. At this moment, Yang Tian's eyes widened. With a thought, the 12 black holes that formed the black hole chain in the energy world sped up again. After the lesson of almost losing control once, Yang Tian didn't want to do this. But at this time, if he didn't increase the speed of the 12 black holes to the maximum, Kuo-shing would definitely escape. From the time that Kuo-shing was trapped until now, the time was very short. Yang Tian didn't even have time to use 15 to give Kuo-shing a few hard blows. As the 12 black holes sped up, the energy absorption speed also increased. More than half of the energy that Kuo-shing unleashed was absorbed by the black holes. But there was still a small part that resisted the attractive force of the 12 black holes. Taking this opportunity, Kuo-shing's feet stomped on the ground. With a loud bang, Kuo-shing used the powerful rebound force and rushed straight to the top of the cave. Yang Tian couldn't help but be shocked. But at this moment, he didn't have time to react. Seeing that Kuo-shing's body was about to rush out of the force field formed by the 12 black holes, a huge claw came down from above Kuo-shing's head. It was the little blue dragon. At this critical moment, the little blue dragon, who had turned into a giant dragon, quickly flew over and appeared above Kuo-shing. Seeing that Kuo-shing was about to escape, he didn't even think and slapped down with his claw. In a moment of desperation, the little blue dragon also used its most powerful strength. With its current strength, even a tall mountain would be crushed by its claw. Seeing the giant claw coming at him from above, Kuo-shing's face turned serious. He raised his hand and punched towards the little blue dragon's claw. Boom! There was another loud bang. Immediately after, a large amount of blood splattered in all directions. Roar! The little blue dragon couldn't help but cry out in pain. Kuo-shing's punch had actually shattered the little blue dragon's enormous dragon claw. The little blue dragon's body also tumbled a few times in the air because of the huge impact. Its huge body hit the top of the cave, and huge rocks fell like rain. Although he destroyed one of the little blue dragon's dragon claws and pushed the little blue dragon back, Kuo-shing still couldn't break through Yang Tian's binding power. In fact, Kuo-shing had paid a huge price in order to escape. The explosion of power just now was like an explosive. Although it had weakened the power that bound him, the powerful explosive force had also caused his body to suffer serious injuries. After Kuo-shing had shattered the little blue dragon's dragon claws and landed on the ground again, Qing Wuxingyang, who had returned to Yang Tian's side, finally saw Kuo-shing clearly. At this time, Kuo-shing's clothes had already been shattered. His skin had been blown to pieces, and the muscles that were wrapped in his skin were exposed. It looked like he had been skinned, and it was a horrifying sight. Kuo-shing's current appearance was even worse than if he had been dismembered. An injury like this would definitely be fatal for normal humans. But for cultivators, it was only a minor injury. As long as he could survive, Quang Shing would be able to return to his original appearance in less than half a day. The little blue dragon's injury was the same. It was only a flesh wound. After it hit the top of the cave and fell to the ground, it could be seen that its broken dragon claws were quickly recovering. After Quang Shing's hope was destroyed by Little Blue, the situation had reached a temporary stalemate. At this time, the tiny green insects in the cave began to rampage. The energy produced by the battle and the large amount of flesh and blood attracted a large number of green insects to swarm over. In a moment, the green insects around Yang Tian and the others were so densely packed that they were practically turning from a green mist into a green liquid. In order to stop these insects, Yang Tian's mental power was being consumed faster and faster. Fortunately, when the 12 black holes trapped Quang Shing, they also sucked in a large number of these insects. If the green insects in the cave didn't swarm over continuously, they would have been sucked in by Yang Tian's 12 black holes and turned into energy to support the operation of the black holes. For the little blue dragon, it was much simpler. After it landed, its body was ignited with a layer of golden dragon flames. Any green insects that came close to it were all burned to ashes. After catching his breath, Yang Tian looked coldly at Quang Shing and raised the red longsword in his hand high up. The rate at which the black hole chain consumed energy was too fast. If he didn't end the battle soon, Quang Shing would be defeated by this. There was an ear-piercing sound of friction in the air. A red, crescent-shaped sword aura separated from the red blade and rushed toward Quang Shing like a bolt of lightning. Not only could this sword aura directly hurt a person's soul, but the force it contained could also cause great damage to the physical body. Facing Yang Tian's attack, Quang Shing, who was bound by Yang Tian, couldn't dodge. He could only watch as the sword aura cut through the green mist and opened a path, rushing straight toward him. Quang Shing had already taken a hit from Yang Tian before, so he knew how terrifying this kind of energy was. Just as he was having trouble moving, the little energy in his body exploded again. There was a muffled sound. The red sword aura violently crashed into Quang Shing's energy shield. This attack didn't break through Quang Shing's energy shield, and it disappeared upon contact. The reason why he took a hit from Yang Tian before was because he had just finished teleporting. Otherwise, Yang Tian's attack wouldn't have hurt his soul. Tch. After this attack, Yang Tian didn't wait for the result. He continued to swing his sword toward Quang Shing. At this time, he didn't want to see the result. He just wanted to keep slashing until Quang Shing was killed. Quang Shing had great power, so his energy consumption was slower than Yang Tian's. He knew that if he continued to fight with Yang Tian like this, he would win. But as a Soul's Travel Realm expert and the Supreme Temple Master of the Everlasting Temple, it was an insult to him to be used as a target by Yang Tian. If one thought that Quang Shing only had the same means as before, then they were underestimating him. Facing Yang Tian's attack, Quang Shing's face that hadn't recovered began to twist. Immediately, a strange aura was emitted from his body. The green bugs in the cave were sucked in by Yang Tian's black hole. There were fewer and fewer of them, making the cave brighter and brighter. Noticing the change in Quang Shing's aura, Yang Tian couldn't help but slow down his slashing. Then, the changes that happened to Quang Shing made Yang Tian's eyes widen. Because Quang Shing began to transform. Tomorrow, 6,000 words, 3 chapters. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.